If you guys aren't subscribed to Pangburn, hopefully you come out and subscribe. We got a lot of debates and live discussions on our channel, some of which you may have never seen. If you like God debates, check out Alex O'Connor versus Dinesh D'Souza if you haven't watched that one yet on our channel. Alex O'Connor absolutely obliterates Dinesh D'Souza. I thought it was going to be a more fair fight, but I also thought that Dinesh D'Souza was going to kind of underestimate Alex, and I think he did. And he paid dearly for it. Check out that one. Also check out our recent vaccine debate that featured Professor Dave Explains and Debunk the Funk Dr. Dan Wilson. They went head-to-head with chronic anti-vaxxers Steve Kirsch and Dr. Pierre Corey. That was, I'm calling that maybe the most exciting event in Pangburn history because, well, you'll see when you watch it. It was just, there was a lot of action on stage. Any of our debaters here yet? Anyone who bought a debate ticket, signed up to debate? Any here yet? Okay. Not yet. Welcome, everybody. Feel free to grab yourself a seat, even if you bought a standing-only ticket. We just might have to move you eventually or add more seats, but we do have more seats in the venue. So feel free to sit down, get comfortable. Also think about if we do have a bunch of no-shows of our people who signed up to debate, think about something you might want to talk to Stephen about, preferably something you disagree with him on. Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're just waiting for our debaters. All right, guys, say hello to Stephen. Put your hands together. Let's go. Well, what's on your mind today?
Same thing that's on my mind every day. Just watching the country having a great time, I guess, under the current administration. Did anybody here go to any of the protests related to the ICE stuff that's going on here, or a few? Where are my activists at, guys? What the fuck? Yeah, I was like fighting like 4 guys, and then they had to arrest me and haul me off, and now I'm here. No, how far is that from here even? Gotcha. I think they deployed, it was like, it's not fucking, the ones from Abbott weren't coming here, right? I heard that a couple governors were like making their National Guards available to like sit in the corner for Trump or whatever. All of them? I thought that was just the California stuff. I thought, didn't we get rid of injunctions on, ironically, the nation? Sure. Okay. Well, damn. The California Guard?
Yeah, they showed up anyway.
Showed up here? Damn. Do they, when I checked into my hotel, there were like 2 dudes in like military uniforms. That's not like those guys, right? Was that just a coincidence, or?
That was just because you were here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so who bought a debate ticket tonight? Okay, there we go. We got one. What's your name? Zachary. Great. You got a pro-Trump position you'll be debating Stephen on? Okay. Great. Excellent. Sorry, what was your name? I'm terrible with names. Zachary. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, so we've been traveling around the country doing this anti-Trump debate tour. Hopefully you guys have been watching the video content. Have you been enjoying the content? Yeah? Right on. I just think this is so important to be discussing these ideas in a good faith, helpful way. I'm sick and tired of McDonald's political philosophy all over the fucking internet. I have no interest in it. I want political realism. I want real people having real discussions. It's amazing how much something like this humanizes people. I think we have the opposite effect of what some of these some of the YouTube algorithm and other things do to dehumanize people and to radicalize others. So what I always hope to see on this stage is a good faith, helpful dialectic, a political dialectic. That doesn't mean it can't be passionate, but I think it's important. I think it gives us the best chance to bear fruit out of our conversations.
How many of you guys have like conservative friends? Where the fuck are they? Why didn't you get them to sign up for this? What the fuck?
They're too scared, right?
I heard too scared. I heard didn't feel like the conversation was what? Okay. He doesn't want to put up with his conservative friends for the evening. Okay. All of your conservative friends, none of them wanted to sign up to fight? I mean, have a discussion? Sorry.
All right. Well, why don't we start with Zachary? Yeah, come on up. Everyone put your hands together for Zachary. He's going to be our first debater tonight. Keep it going. It takes a while to walk up here. So since you're first, you're going to be holding the microphone nice and close to the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's up? How's it going?
So, under Trump's immigration zero tolerance policy in 2018, over 5,000 children were stripped away from their parents. And according to a Yale human rights report, between 2017 and 2021, more than 4,600 were stripped away. And 1,360 were never reunited with their parents. But I have a question more broadly regarding the concept of, what morally relevant distinction do you make between yourself and Trump when you can't name the trait between mother cows and calves and migrant mothers and children who are stripped away when 9.5 million are stripped away each year in the U.S. alone?
Well, I think the moral difference is there's probably different categories between like humans and animals and other humans. So you could be okay with one and not the other, and it'd be a different thing, even if you think that they should all be morally condemnable, like actions.
Wait, but that's actually naming something similar that I believe I would expect out of Trump, right? Because he would try to say that even though children and mothers are being separated from one another, there's some trait regarding them that he finds to be acceptable that everyone else doesn't see is acceptable. I mean, it just seems like if we were to go back in the 1850s and I were to ask a slave owner, hey, if your consciousness was uploaded into the experience of this black person, he would just reiterate the same sort of point that you mentioned, that there's differences between the white and the black individual, and instead of actually naming the trait or set of traits. So, I mean, do you think that a human life and an animal life are exchangeable, like have the same moral consideration, like from one to the other? You mean morally equal?
Yeah.
You often equate moral sufficiency and moral equality, and that brings up a really good question, because it's quite obvious, as you've said many times before, that no intelligent vegan position would actually equate the two. There would be some sort of hierarchy, like when you spoke to Cosmic Skeptic. And so I think this actually exposes my point yet further, because if about 70 million would have been stripped away between animals between that time, and there would have been about 5,000 children, I mean, that's about a difference of, 70,000 times? I mean, or 7,000 times? Is it really the case that the moral value of animals isn't even to a sufficient level of consideration, even though 70 million would have been stripped away between that time and only 5,000 for children?
I mean, I think you can have hierarchies within buckets. So, like, we could say that, we wouldn't necessarily say that, like, we would put one human life would go in a different moral bucket than another human life. But, like, if we were comparing two humans, to some extent, we have to make some of these calls when it comes to, say, organ transplants, right? If you could transplant a new heart into a 90-year-old patient versus, like, a 20-year-old patient.
Where's the moral dilemma? You could value both. You could denounce both. It's not like you have to choose between the
Yeah, but we're not talking about
children.
that. So the thing that you're hitting me with is you're saying, what's the difference morally between you and Trump if you're condemning Trump for separating human babies and
The
human
morally
adults?
relevant distinction, not just the difference.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, I think it's a morally relevant distinction that I would protect greater classes of humans than he would, even if neither of us would protect,
If
animal
you can
life.
value both, then what do you mean greater? What's the relevance of that?
Well, you're drawing a larger circle around what should be protected than what I would draw. I would draw a smaller circle, and then Trump would draw an even smaller circle still, so that would be the difference, right?
What do you mean smaller circle? The arbitrarity.
As in, my
within
circle
the
would include
concept of-
immigrants, and his circle doesn't include immigrants. So mine is larger and his is smaller. But you're saying, well, why is it that if your
You
circle...
mean the net amount of total beings, right?
Well, we're talking about categories of people, but sure.
Is that a yes? Because you said smaller circle.
No, net implies number. I'm talking categories of things. Like I'm talking about different categories of things.
So what do you
not-
mean by the larger and smaller circle?
The larger circle would include a greater number of categories of things that I would protect in terms of life. than
Right,
Trump's.
which effectively means the total number of beings, right?
Not necessarily, no.
So then what do you mean?
There's a difference between a category and a thing itself, right? Like a category could have a million things.
What's the
so
category
somebody
that's
could protect
encapsulate?
10 categories, and each category could have one thing, and another guy could protect one category with a million things. But yeah.
No offense, but this all sounds like jargon, right? Because if I was asking someone
Hold on,
again,
wait,
who's
wait,
a slave owner, if I
Yeah,
ask someone
this
who's a
is
slave
not-
owner,
hold on,
what
this
does
is
it
not-
exclude?
This is not jargon. I'm being pretty precise with my language. I'm saying that I would draw a bigger circle around the categories of things, not necessarily the individual numbers of people in those things or the individual numbers of things in those categories. I'm saying there are certain categories that I care about, like the separation of immigrant children from immigrant parents, and Trump doesn't seem to care about that. So I would have apparently I'm casting a wider net in terms of categories
Sounds
there.
exactly what Trump would say. He would just make a point that he at least cares about a larger number of beings than some other dictator who cares about less, like Xi Jinping or Putin or, North Korean dictator.
Yeah,
Like-
but that might be true, right? I don't know if I would fight. If Trump were to say, well,
so
I'm
then
not,
it's not a morally relevant distinction then, is it?
well, the
because you
distinction we're
drew a
trying to draw
line
is
that
between me
exclude-
and Trump. There might be a morally relevant distinction between like Trump and Hitler. I would acknowledge that.
No. But the morally relevant distinction that I was asking you was with regards to the separation of mothers and children. And if he would effectively just say the same thing, that there's somebody out there who's worse than him, that doesn't justify the question that's being posed.
Yeah, but we're not justifying anything. You just asked for a distinction. You
A
can have
morally
distinct-
relevant distinction.
You can have a morally relevant distinction between two things, but both things are still bad. There's a difference between assaulting someone
Well,
and
then it
murdering
sounds
someone.
like you're assuming then. So do you want to ask what a morally relevant distinction would be defined as, instead of just taking it to mean something that can be posed to the agent themselves?
Well, I guess when you say morally relevant distinction, what do you mean by
The
that?
same exact way that Isaac would have posed it to you, Vegan Gaines would have posed it to you, despite you,
That's
going
not
to your
telling me
echo chamber
anything. I'm asking
downstream.
you what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so I was trying to finish my sentence. So the same thing that would be meant, which is to your own view. Do you think that you avoid the logical consequences behind the thing it is that you're justifying? That would be.
How
so
can
you
I
na- you
avoid the
named trait
logical
being human.
consequences behind the thing that you would have to own the consequences of the thing you're justifying? No.
But what you mean, like admit that you hold the position?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Of course, I would hope you're not being dishonest.
Okay. So what is the?
Well, I mean, it's your view, right? So you said the trait was being human. That was the trait that made it more acceptable to strip mothers and children away in one context and not the other, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But now we're talking about like how I'm protecting things. Before, the thing that you premised this on was that Trump's distinctions were his distinction between immigrants and non-immigrants. I can't criticize that because I don't draw a distinction between
No, not that
humans
you
and
can't.
non-humans.
Not that you can't. That it would be a morally relevant distinction, and it would be very funny
When you say morally relevant, what do you mean when you say that?
So yeah, I'll say it again. That the logical consequences of the view, right, morally relevant, would be a large distinction. I'm not saying it's the case that cows don't have hooves or.
No, wait. I just define that thing.
A
I don't
cocktail.
understand what that means. Morally relevant. What do you mean a morally relevant distinction?
A morally relevant distinction would be something that makes a difference of consideration to a large enough degree that it would move you from one position versus the other.
Okay, so it has to be something that it's like a binary, or it's like a categorically different thing. So like, there's no morally relevant difference between assaulting someone and murdering someone to you. They're both just wrong, right?
Assaulting someone and murdering someone. No, there's hierarchies to these concepts, of course.
Well, okay, so then I don't understand. Then it feels like that saves my argument from your morally relevant distinction.
Having a hierarchy doesn't mean that you're not excluding beings from having protection with regards to their right to life and basic autonomy, simply because of what you just mentioned was a species, right? If my gene detector just went off and found out that destiny is actually not the species of what you are, which is human, is it okay to kill and eat you by your own logic?
Well, I don't know. That's a whole separate argument.
You don't know?
Well, that's a
Wait,
totally
but if
separate.
hold on.
You're jumping.
But if it's your view, wait,
you're-
that's it.
hold on,
If it's
hold
your
on.
view, if it's your view,
I'm not
wait,
going to
if it's
answer
your
whatever
view-
question because you're jumping topics completely.
What?
The initial question was whether or not I would be able to essentially to criticize Donald Trump's position if it would be hypocritical of me to do so
You
because I'm not
can
vegan.
justify it, but the question is if you can justify it to any meaningful degree to which your audience would say, oh, wow, that's something that makes a difference. When Frederick Douglass gave his speech on the 5th of July in 1852, he talked about the very core foundation of name the trait. The same underlying logic that said not what difference is there, he essentially pointed to a trivial difference. Or Elizabeth Stanton, who asked, the same prejudice that allowed for color, allowed for sex. It's just these trivial differences. So I think that democracy was built off of the same exact question that's being posed to you, and you just keep essentially running back to these concepts that no one can really understand when they try to unravel it. I'm still having difficulty understanding it. Is the trait human that you think makes it acceptable?
It is, but that wasn't what the initial thing was. The initial thing was me and Trump can have a different position on immigrants, and I don't lose the ability to criticize
You
him
keep
for
saying
that.
different and taking out the component that I think matters, which is morally relevant distinction.
Sure, we can have a morally relevant distinction on how to treat immigrants, and I can
To
criticize.
whom? To yourself, right?
What do you mean?
You said we can have a morally relevant distinction, right?
Yes.
From your own view, right?
Sure.
I would ask your audience if you think that you're morally distinct from Trump because you drew the line at where moral value was lost simply because of the trait species. Again, I think if you were honest about the reductio that I gave you, which falls from the view that I took my little beep detector out and it said Destiny is actually an android, that your audience would not want to kill and eat you by your own logic, but you would agree in order for, I'm sure, to maintain logical consistency that that's the case, right?
Not necessarily. That's a really complicated question.
Wait, no, but it would follow from the view. If the trait was actually genuinely what you just said, which was being human, then it would have to follow from your view. You should not know that. You should know that. This is just like when you spoke to Vegan Gains. You said you weren't sure, but you should be sure if that's your view.
Sure. So that's a totally different argument. We were focusing on the Trump thing. If you want to have like a general argument, I guess, about veganism, then we can have like the general argument about
It's
veganism.
still,
but
no. It entails the concept of name the trait, but it still
No, name
reduces
the
down
trait is
to
a
it still
singular-
reduces down to Trump
No, so
because if
name
you
the trait
think,
is a singular way by which we can try to expose a non-vegan's hypocrisy when it comes to veganism if we want.
not hypocrisy, logical inconsistency, or absurdity, and it seems like you're taking that one.
Whatever, sure,
Sure.
whatever you want to say. But the
broader question is about Trump, though.
Yeah. Even the comparisons to the slave-owning people before, I don't think were necessarily compelling. Like, even if a person, might have a bad view on slavery, we would still say there's a huge moral difference between a person's view on human life who wants to kill all humans or enslave all humans versus somebody who wants to enslave just a certain race of humans. The person who wants to enslave anyone, would you not recognize there's a difference between those two people?
Again, you keep saying
I'm gonna
difference.
ask
It's a
that
morally
over-
relevant
Is
distinction.
there a morally relevant distinction between those two people? Somebody who wants to enslave all people or somebody who wants to enslave just one kind of person?
Of course. If there,
Okay,
if
wait,
there was a
so
woman
they
who was
can
going to
have
be
a
raped and
morally-
killed versus
Yeah.
just killed, I would obviously choose one evil over the other. But
Sure,
that
so
moral
then
dilemma
why can't I make
doesn't
the
get
same
you out of-
distinction?
That moral dilemma doesn't get you out of the base question, which you don't have to choose either.
What do you mean you don't have to choose either?
You don't have to choose either atrocity.
Sometimes you
can
do,
denounce.
though, right? Like in an election, you have
Is
to...
that the context that's being asked of you?
Well, the context that was being
You
asked...
can't answer yes or no. I'm just going to ask, is that the context that was originally being asked of you, or did you assume that?
I don't know.
Because-
I don't know how this maps onto the concept. Originally, it seemed like the question...
Sure, so stripping mothers and children away
Yes.
for the context exactly as we do in regards to animals, which is just to eat them, or Trump actually at least has a better, on the book superficial sounding reason because he's trying to protect America, but you're actually lower than that on that tier because you're talking about the
Then
concept
don't
of just
vote
eating
for me,
animals.
I guess, if you care about veganism. I mean...
Wait, what's that?
Don't vote for me, I guess, if you care about veganism. I don't...
That sounds exactly what Trump would do. He would use humor in order to deflect instead of actually defending
I'm
his
not
position
using
logically.
humor to deflect. I think that you can have two people that are both
You
non-vegans.
just said don't vote for you,
You
right?
can have
Was
two
that your
people
position?
that are non-vegans, and you can have like a moral distinction between the two in the
You
positions
just said
they
you're
hold.
not joking,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. What?
Well, you just said don't vote for you on veganism. I think if Trump said don't vote for me on black rights, again, you've only proven my point that you are MAGA. You're succumbing to the same exact ideology underlyingly. That,
Okay, do you
guys,
think
that's
that-
not to say that he has the identical views that are held, but the underlying logic therein. If you think that there's a morally relevant distinction, I implore you to actually think about it.
Okay.
Saying okay rhetorically and not going back to how you think you're morally distinct doesn't get you out of the point.
I've
does
already
it?
said how I'm morally distinct. You don't
You've
accept the answer
said
because
it,
you're...
but you have it. But every single time rhetorically you've lost it because you're going up against.
No, I
someone who's
haven't lost it because
philosophically
you want to
competent.
have a further debate on like how to justify the position of veganism.
No, underlyingly, it comes back around to that. If you think that there is some sort of a distinction between humans and animals that makes it acceptable, but if your justification hinges on you being distinct from Trump because of that underlying distinction, that's not necessarily the same thing.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So the broader question is still, how do you morally distinguish yourself from Trump? Underlyingly, there's a premise of that if you can't name a morally relevant distinction between humans and animals, such that one atrocity of stripping mothers and children away in one context because of species is acceptable, then yes, you can go back to name the trait. But if you're the point is just that there's two separate questions. One's a question within a question with regards to name the trait. I just assumed, or not really assumed, but knew from what your public position was last on veganism that you said, the trait was species, so on and so forth. You had a chance to name it again, but that doesn't sound like anything else Trump would or wouldn't say. It sounds exactly like what he would say. He would try to name mothers and children are being stripped away. Well, they're just another species. Don't vote for me when it comes to, black rights or women's rights, Jew rights, any of these other rights.
Okay. I think I'm understanding what you're getting at. Okay. I'm going to try to rephrase your argument and tell me if this is what you're saying, okay? All right? Okay. I think you're trying to say that I have a position on veganism versus non-veganism. And part of this ultimately would reduce down to an argument related to name the trait. And my justification for killing animals versus not killing humans would be that I would name some trait that you would say that if you would explore through argumentation, you'd find this ultimately an arbitrary distinction.
No, not that I would think, that either you from your own view or anybody else can
Sure,
judge
anybody
it.
logically would say this. Okay.
What's that?
Anybody logically parsing the statements or anybody?
No, there's a big distinction there because you might just say, well, that's from your own vegan perspective. But if it hinges on the core values that you already have regarding human rights and it starts from a human and says at what point is moral value lost, you don't get out of that by saying that I already value animals because it doesn't start from that. It would be true of your own view that if you said, again, I took the little beat detector and it found out that Destiny was an android, that would presumably be problematic from your own view.
I mean, maybe. I don't know how we would resolve that. I mean, we can talk about that next.
You say maybe, but is the trait
hold on. You keep trying to. I'm just trying to understand your argument. Okay.
Okay, sure.
So it sounds like you're trying to say that I'm using name the trait to draw a distinction between human and non-human, and I'm using that to justify why one is okay and one isn't okay. But that ultimately, if I were to explore that, I wouldn't be able to justify my arguments there. But that if we look at Trump, I'm trying to criticize Trump, and you're saying, well, your criticism of Trump is that he's essentially using name the trait between immigrants and non-immigrants. Therefore, we're both powering our positions with the same type of argumentation. So how can I criticize one versus
Not the
other?
same. I don't know if same type of argumentation means the same underlying logic that attempts to make a
That's
distinction between.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I understand your perspective when it comes to that. We would have to explore, I guess, the vegan side of the argument more. Do you think on a broader level, do you feel like there is a difference between those two types of people, or in your mind is every single non-vegan basically incapable of logically criticizing like any other non-vegan's
No,
position?
that's a separate question, right? Being able to logically criticize somebody else that's worse than you is distinct from whether or not you succumb to the underlying logic of the other party in
Okay, but
question.
do you think that it might be that one party might be preferable even if they use the same
Sure.
underlying
So
logic?
I can understand where, if I understand you correctly, you're trying to say, for example, can a pedophile judge Hitler? Of course they could. For example, somebody who's bad can judge somebody else who's worse, but still operate under some sort of disregard for the rights of other beings. That doesn't really get you out of the position in question. And so all I understand from you so far
Okay,
is
wait.
I'm very confused.
So then, just so we can establish, so I can criticize Trump, and I can say that one side, the Democrats, is preferable to the other side.
It was never a matter of if you could say that you could criticize
well, sure.
Trump.
Then we should be able to say yes. Then I can, right? I can,
distinction.
right?
It's if you had a morally relevant distinction.
Okay, but I'm just we have some shared ground. We can say that one side is preferable to the other, even if both are non-vegan.
We've gone through the concept of moral dilemmas, but this is a matter of moral sufficiency.
I understand that, but I'm just asking the question again. Can we say that we prefer one side over the other, even if both sides are non-vegan, because of other moral positions they might hold that might have some more relevance?
Saying that you have a preference is not the question, though, that was originally posed to you.
No, that's the question I'm asking right now.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Whew. Okay.
Is this water available?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait, did you drink it?
No.
Well, I mean, someone else has been drinking it, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so, so then rephrase, catch me up. So what is our disagreement on right now? You're saying right now that I'm not able to criticize Trump's position on immigration because we don't have a morally relevant distinction between how I justify non-veganism and how he justifies
you could say that's what caused you to be logically consistent, but it seems that it would make you absurd because you said the trait was species, but then you actually contradicted because you said you're not sure. So is it the trait species that distinguishes the two?
I mean, can't there be, if we're talking about like a category of actions that somebody's taking, there's like a category of actions that would probably be unacceptable against a certain category of thing. It seems like even if me and Trump disagree on how we arrive at a certain place. Like we're both using kind of like name the trait. If you're going to say I'm using name the trait, we're both using name the trait to power different types of arguments. Like I feel like your criticism here would be more on the nose if Trump was using name the trait to just like kill illegal immigrants.
No, I'm not saying that the result of the action necessarily means that it's going to be, the removal of the right to life in those situations. That's why I analogize just the stripping away from mothers and children. There's a further problem, of course, of murder and so on, but I just think it's very interesting to focus on the specific concept as it pertains to what I've seen you be passionate about several times, which was, human mothers and children be stripped away and then criticize Trump for it, but then not be able to say what the trait is. Again, you say it's species, but then you don't actually bite the bullet on that.
Well, I mean, I think I would bite the bullet on it, but we would have to explore the other hypothetical you gave more.
But when I took out the beep detector, found out that you were an android, you weren't even sure if you'd find it to be okay for by your own view, if you were to be killed and eaten.
Well, because I think it would significantly alter the understanding of what it means to be human, and it would probably significantly alter the understanding of what I even think of myself. Right?
Is that just to say, yes, you'd be consistent on you being killed and eaten for food because we found out that you weren't human?
I don't know. We would have to explore what that means.
If you
when we
don't
say
know,
that we're not
Destiny,
human.
respectfully, if you don't know, then it's not your position.
No, what it means is I have to think about it a little bit more before addressing.
But then the trait
hardcore
is
vegan.
not. But then the trait is not species if you're not sure about it. That's a contradiction.
I understand that you can say these words because you've ran down these arguments 50 trillion times in the vegan Discord server. Because Isaac and Vegan Games have trained you. What I'm saying is that I'm not going to sit here and own.
You're trying to gain rhetorical ground.
No, hold on. I'm not gaining. Hold on. You've been screaming the entire conversation. Okay, chill. Okay.
Screaming?
All I'm saying, well, no, but you're like rattling off like all of the hardcore fucking debator vegan points
well, then
like
make a
crazy.
distinction there.
I don't know if I can at this point in time. I'm not
I
prepared
know
to have
you
a
can't make a
hardcore
moral
debate.
distinction with regards to the rights of life of humans and animals, so you can't make it just.
Well, no, I can make the moral distinction that I consider the life of humans to be life that should be protected, but I don't consider the life of animals to be protected.
That's just that's circular. So I'm wondering what the trait is.
Well, it's not circular. It's axiomatic. It's just foundational, right? I value human life. Some people value greater than human life, right? I don't know if you can justify that.
If you're trying to say it's irreducible and you have some sort of virtue that says that you just care about the species in question, right? Like it could be axiomatic, but it still has to be something true of the being in question. Because otherwise, if it was the same being and you had a difference of attitude, that would be contradictory. Like, how would you distinguish if you were blindfolded whether or not you would kill one set of being versus the other? You wouldn't just say it's axiomatic. There'd have to be something that was described.
Wait, I don't even understand what the purpose of that question is. That could be applied to two humans, and you might be able to not distinguish it if you're blindfolded. How does that?
With regards to whether or not you find it acceptable to take their life.
How could, if you're blindfolded, you don't even have the ability to gather enough?
You have the traits described to you. So if you just said it's axiomatic, and I said that, well, I don't know which being to kill by means of your own view, what do I do? And you just say, kill the one that's human. That's effectively just reducible to you saying it's because of their species. So that's going to reduce down to some thing.
Why does it have to reduce down to anything?
Because if you were talking about the same object and you had a difference of attitude, then it would be a contradiction. It's like
it doesn't have. Wait. Why can't a thing just be in the same category of objects? Like I can talk about two different humans without having to morally distinguish one category of human from another category of human.
If you were talking about the same context of the removal of rights, but you had a difference of attitude, or you claimed to have a difference of attitude, but you said that there was no morally relevant distinction between the two, that's the contradiction.
I don't understand how there could be a contradiction. I can have different human beings that are all human beings that have different categories of rights.
So say that there's two beings that are in front of you, and I ask you, which one would you find to be acceptable to kill? One's a human, one's a cow. And you just say you just value the one, not the other. It's going to beg the question of what about the being that would cause you to say that one has more value.
Sure, the fact that one is a human and one isn't.
So the trait is species then.
Sure, yeah.
Belonging to the hoping. You just said that it wasn't your trait, but again, if I took out the beep detector,
I never said that it wasn't my trait. I'm saying that I can still draw a distinction between two humans without having to say that it's a contradiction because I'm recognizing there might be different rights between two different humans.
No. The concept isn't if one has more or less moral value. It's with regards to, again, the same exact context of the removal of the moral value of the beings. So it's you can.
Trump is not removing the moral value of any beings, though. I don't understand the comparison there.
Wait. He absolutely would be if he's. You just said it yourself earlier,
right? No, this is
right?
the thing I was pointing out earlier.
You said undocumented immigrant or people are having their rights removed, and that's not happening to people who are documented or.
Yeah, but they're not having all of their rights removed. Trump is still treating them as he would treat.
Did I analogize all the rights?
Yeah, yes, that was the distinction we were literally just talking about 2 seconds ago.
No, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I clearly said with regards to stripping away children from their mothers.
Then what is your issue with what I just said 3 seconds earlier? So then we agree that Trump is not stripping away all of their rights, correct?
I didn't just say all their rights. I said with regards to the situations of where mothers are being stripped away from their children.
Okay.
So I said 5,000 at the beginning.
Okay.
That happened
so
between.
back me up. So what is our disagreement then on this?
Your attempt to try to justify the distinction between yourself and Trump is apparently you're confused on if that's species or not. So I don't know how you really distinguish yourself from this guy that you're going on a whole anti-Trump
So I don't
for.
understand how I can't say that Donald Trump doles out different sets of rights to different groups of humans that I don't agree with.
No. You keep saying you don't understand how you can't say something.
I don't understand.
That's
That's
a
not a
modal
morally
term.
relevant distinction between how Trump doles out rights to somebody and how I would dole out rights to
Wait,
somebody.
what was the first part?
I don't understand how we can't. There's not a morally relevant distinction between how the two of us assigned rights to different categories of people.
Do you think there is one?
Yeah?
Is it belong to the species human?
No, I don't think. No, not generally.
So then what is the trait then?
Well, it would be like immigration status or nationality or skin color sometimes.
Yeah, so if somebody looked at Destiny and looked at Trump and said that the reason why you excluded one set of beings and he excluded one set of beings was because in his sense he said nationality, the arbitrarity of the moral value in question from one set of beings versus another, I think to any other being would say if they looked at the immigrants in question and said, oh, they found out tomorrow that they weren't actually belong to the species Homo sapien because the beep detector went off or their mind was transferred into another being.
We're not talking at the level of species though.
It would be if that's your justification. You said that's the thing that distinguishes you and Trump, such that if someone were to look at Destiny, they should view you morally distinct from Trump because this is how you draw your exclusion versus how he draws his exclusion.
Yeah, but I don't understand what the problem is there.
I'm sure you wouldn't, just like how a slave owner wouldn't understand what the problem is.
But the slave owner would see the
if it's
distinction.
axiomatic and it's irreducible to just not, like Nick Fuentes, like when Vegan Gains asked you, like, you just value white people with blue eyes. I mean, yeah, you just value that. But I highly doubt that, right? Because, again, when I made it very abundantly clear and said my beep detector went off and you're an android, you then got all, I don't know if I would be okay with being killed and eaten for food.
Well, no, it would probably radically redefine how I would view that category of thing, so it's hard to imagine that thing.
Then it's not the case that it causes a reduction of moral value, is it?
Well,
So then it's
nobody
not
has
the
ever
trait.
been measured with a gene detector and been found to have not had human genes. So, I mean, like, it's
Wait,
kind of,
what?
Nobody's been measured with a gene beep detector.
That's a
and it's been-
hypothetical denial.
No, what?
You said nobody's been measured with a gene detector, and I'm asking you if it were the case that they were.
If somebody asks me how many different, like, what different types of bathrooms should be in a theater, and I say
Okay,
male and female, and you say, so you believe that there are two genders, and I go, yes, so you would only have two bathrooms, and I go, yeah, and it's like, what if I had a gene detector or some magical thing, and now I found out that there were 10 genders, and I go, okay, well then I guess I would have 10 bathrooms, and then you go, oh, so then you wouldn't have two bathrooms.
What is it you think
Well, of
I'm
course
analogizing?
Well, you're saying that there's some beep detector, then I would find out that I am somehow not belonging to the species of human or whatever. That would radically probably redefine the way that I view that category, and so I would have to reconsider a lot of my, I guess, moral considerations for it.
So then you wouldn't name the trait belonging to the Homo sapien species then as
No,
the
I
reason
would
why.
because that's never been a thing that's been contradicted in the category
But you
of
can
Homo sapiens
posit the thought
species.
experiment, just like how, again, if the black rights activist and I was in 1852
Just
along
because
with
I can
Frederick
posit
Douglass,
the thought experiment doesn't justify it in real life if the thing never actually comes to fruition.
those are the logical consequences of your view. If the white person's consciousness was transferred into the black person's consciousness and they were to say to me, well, that's not of the real world, this, that, or the other, and they tried to escape from it, or if the woman was to say it to the man, if the person who is exploiting Jews were to say, hey, don't put them in a concentration camp because of that, and they tried to run away from it because they said, well, it's not of the real world, guys. I know you love to posit that to your audience to reject hypotheticals
But those things
conveniently.
I don't reject hypotheticals.
You do. You
honestly-
just did. You said
I
that
do-
doesn't happen in the real world.
I'm not rejecting your hypothetical. You're rejecting my answer to the hypothetical by saying I'm avoiding the hypothetical. You're telling me
how
that
am I
if you could
rejecting
scan a magical device on me, and it would show
See,
that I'm
that's
like,
the rhetoric right there. You said magical device.
this would be a magical device.
What's the
I'm
value
sorry.
of saying
I'm
those
sorry.
words?
A scientific device that measures me, something that delivers.
How about just instead of giving any cute words on the side, you actually
you literally
engage with
called it a gene beeper, didn't you? What do you mean?
Is that the point of fixation with regards to
I'm
what's
not
being asked of
fixating
you?
on it. I was trying to get to the hypothetical.
This is exactly Trump antics.
Okay.
Hey, look,
This
everybody,
is
you're gonna
vegan
talk-
server antics,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
okay,
you're only
it
making
is.
my point.
What I'm saying is that if you could measure me and it turns out that I belong to a totally different species, then that would probably radically alter the way that I view the category of human being. And so
And
if it
the
would-
you now, but now you're equivocating off of the point in time. I'm
Hold
asking
on,
you
I'm
now.
going to finish this. When I say when that beeper were to beep me and I were to be non-human, it would radically alter the way that I would define that category and view
Am
that
I
category.
asking that
and then
version
it
of
would
you or this?
probably and then all of the morality that is entailed by my understanding of that category would also probably necessarily cascadingly change.
If I understand that correctly, you don't understand the hypothetical because I'm asking you now what your current preferences are. So if you were to look at that version of yourself, would it be okay? I'm not asking once the beep detector were to go off, would that version of you then change? You can think of it now. I can hypothesize, hey, later I'm going to go to the store and pick out cherry versus blueberry soda. Like, you can just posit the hypothetical and imagine that version of yourself, but we're asking the current version of you.
Yeah, but the hypothetical to some extent is absurd because you're posing.
There we go. There's a hypothetical that I was waiting for, so go ahead.
Okay. I would say that my feelings of the hypothetical is absurd is because you're implying some abstract thing that can emerge from something that I would say is impossible for it to emerge from. It's like a logical impossibility.
So on what modality is it impossible? You said logical, right?
Yeah, that there's no way that a human being like me can emerge from something that is not like a human understanding of our DNA or whatever.
Wait. The impossibility is logical, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm sorry. What's the claim that's specifically logically impossible?
That the abstraction of a human being emerges necessarily from the underlying genetic stuff that makes up humans. However you want to define that.
I'm trying to understand. The abstraction of a human being emerges from what?
From our DNA.
So you're just trying to say you can't imagine an alternate being that looks like you but doesn't have human species?
I'm saying that it doesn't seem to be a thing that's part of that category of human being.
Of the human, yeah. I mean, that's your trait, right? It's stipulated that they don't have the species human. So, but your problem was that it was a logical impossibility. That doesn't encapsulate a logical impossibility if you can imagine the being.
No, but it would radically change the way that I would view that category, and there would be a bunch of other cascading effects that would come from that.
But Destiny, that's not a logical impossibility.
No, but it would. I'm just saying that.
But you just claimed it was.
Okay.
If you want to be not like Trump, can you at least concede that?
So it's not about being like Trump. The issue is that because you guys.
So you can.
So just okay. So I understand that you guys like to railroad everything down into like these like very 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 discrete like prop logic lines. It's not respectfully. You're not capable of having. The reason why our earlier conversation was failing, by the way, is because you have this concept that you learned in the server called morally relevant distinction, and you cannot like fathom anything.
No,
that
I understand it outside of the server.
You couldn't understand anything. That's why I had to rephrase your argument like five times.
Try to gain rhetorical
conversation with each other. But so the issue is that like if somebody were to tell me, would you ever recommend drinking a radioactive poison, and I say, well, no, I don't think I would ever recommend that ever. And they're like, oh, really? Well, what if radioactive poison was sometimes healthy for you? Then I say, okay, well, then I guess that I would.
I'm not changing. No, I'm not changing the context. It's held constant. So
no, nothing is constant because in my mind right now, my being cannot emerge from a non-human DNA foundation. That's impossible.
You said if it were sometimes acceptable. Was that what analogous to what I said?
What do you mean?
You said in your analogy, you said, well, what if I told you that the radioactive poison? It's unclear how any of this tracks, but if I could at least get one component that I think you're analogizing.
Wait, you can't understand you're completely and totally unable to understand my analogy. It's totally.
I'm trying to understand. You said in your analogy, if someone were to say, what if this radioactive poison were to sometimes harm you? And I'm wondering how that tracks back to what I said.
Okay, what if the radioactive poison was actually always healthy for you, was always good for you?
Okay, how is that that's an example. How does that track back to what I said? How does that plug in?
You really can't understand how it tracks back to what you said.
What specifically are you trying to analogize?
Okay, I'm going to restate my thing, and I'm going to let you figure it out, okay? I'm saying that if there is a thing, okay, there's a cup of radioactive poison, and when one of the properties of this is when you drink it, your body dissolves, okay? And I say you should never drink the radioactive poison. And if somebody says, oh, yeah, well, I, measure this thing, and actually, this radioactive poison, the stuff you call radioactive poison, this is actually okay for you to drink. So, like, now how do you feel about it? Well, my feelings about that thing would probably change radically, and all things that I define as, like, radioactive poison would change radically.
Sure. So I've heard you restate it, and since you want to play this game of natural language instead of actually spelling it out clearly for me, I'm going to give it to you. You said that there's somebody who would drink a radioactive poison posed as a hypothetical. I don't see how there's anything analogous in terms of the logical components there. And then if you're talking about what I thought you were discussing, which was proving that this was somehow a logical impossibility or something that you couldn't answer or something like that, I didn't get that either from your hypothetical.
What?
Try to gain more rhetorical ground. It's okay.
I'm not trying to gain rhetorical ground. You're the one who's using. This is the reason why nobody likes Isaac, by the way. This is why, because of the way you guys debate, right?
I can't hear you. This is the reason
the problem is that you're trying to gain rhetorical ground by smashing prop logic and pretending that you're making any kind of coherent point.
If the
goal is to just like smash the prop logic and do it, you can do it.
Name the trait is plastered online. Why do you think?
No one is talking about name the trait right now. I know that you really are super eager to run down that line of thought.
No. I'm giving it as an example. You're just trying to cut me off.
What I'm saying is that there is a lot to explore. I'm not trying. You literally just told me to try to win rhetorically, so I'm going to try to win rhetorically. Okay? You're trying to ask me a hypothetical, and you're saying that I'm refusing to engage with a hypothetical because I'm telling you the hypothetical entails more than a simple yes or no. If somebody were to scan somebody and show that, hey, this thing that you have this understanding of as being a human being can actually emerge from a totally different thing, well, then my understanding of that category and all of the things that I feel about it, moral, metaphysical, and everything else, those things would also probably radically change.
If you're saying I didn't give you enough context, then
no,
you
that's
should
not
say
at
that.
all what I just said.
You just said
I
you
didn't
would,
say that. I didn't say that at all.
So then what are you trying to say that's true?
Try to figure it out. What did I just say?
Destiny, this is condescending.
I agree.
What specifically, with regards to the hypothetical, are you posing as a problem? Because I'm
The problem is
legitimately
that I don't think
confused.
humans can emerge from non-human DNA. One necessarily entails the other.
Right, you said cannot. That's another
Yes.
modal term. Right. So do you think that's what I asked you?
No.
So then you're not tracking the hypothetical.
I am tracking the hypothetical. I'm just saying
You
that
just said no, that's not what I asked you. And the whole audience laughed just a moment ago with regards to when you said the term condescending.
What I'm saying is
but
that if you were to
didn't- but
show
you didn't-
me-
You admitted you didn't track the hypothetical, so I'm going to give it back to you. I said if I took out a beep detector and found out that you were technically not human, you're telling me that you can't understand the concept behind it because of some sort of idea that the hypothetical I gave you is absurd, logically impossible. Whenever I unpacked that, you didn't have an answer.
I'm saying I understand the concept behind it. I'm just saying that thing.
That's all that's required.
Okay, I'm saying that it would radically change my concept or understanding of that particular category, but it wouldn't necessarily change the way that I engage with it. The category of human. Maybe instead then I would split it into two categories of, oh, well, I guess there's maybe subdivision human A and subdivision human B. But these would still be part of the ontological categoate of human, so you haven't like escaped
The current
human
you now,
problem.
the current you now is making that decision. Then you're saying.
I'm saying that that could be possible. I don't know what the difference would be. I guess we would have to dive more into the distinction. But if you measure something and you find out that it's actually something that you didn't think it was, then I would have to reanalyze that category. I'd have to change the way that I view
But
it.
I'm asking you now. So is it the trait belong to the species Homo sapien or not?
Right now it is, yes. But
When I gave you
All
the
right,
word
final
Tokyo-
thoughts,
wait, no,
Mr.
wait, hold on.
Vegan.
Hold on,
Final
no, no,
thoughts.
wait, hold on. Okay. When somebody 10,000 years ago identified something as water, okay, and they identified a thing as water, and when somebody today identifies a thing as H2O, are they identifying the exact same thing? Do they both mean the same thing? Are they both saying the same thing?
Not necessarily.
How not? What's the difference?
If someone were to, well, from your hypothetical, if someone were to describe the same concept, but someone were to understand it differently, then no.
So two people, you bring them 10,000 years ago and a modern person. One person looks at a thing and they go, oh, that's water. And the other person goes, oh, that's H2O.
Okay.
Are they identifying and talking about the same thing?
Of course, yeah. If they point to the same exact object and say that they described it differently, but they're talking about the same thing.
Do they have? Could they not have a different understanding of the thing? So, for instance,
could.
the guy who says something is water, maybe the other guy, and then you say, oh, well, water and H2O are the same thing, and then you identify it as H2O. Well, maybe
Wait,
it's not.
But it's not the same thing. This was originally about moral sufficiency, and I know that you've tried to take.
No,
out
hold on.
throttle by-
We're not at the moral sufficiency. I'm just saying that two
That's
people.
the
I'm
thing
saying
you
that
compared.
just because we've refined our understanding of water doesn't mean that all of a sudden water doesn't exist, or water is the same thing as every other thing. Much the same that if you were to
But
put some kind of
Destiny.
detector on me and you were to show that
What do
human
you-
beings, or what I consider to be human beings, emerge from something that's not just human DNA, therefore species doesn't matter. Well, it might be that species matters, but there's like a further delineation that I would
When you
draw.
s-
Maybe, possibly. That
When
could be the case.
you say matters, that's relative to something, which was originally
Matters
what?
insofar as moral assignment goes.
You just said that's not what we were talking about. You said no, it's not about being
Not
moral.
about the water and the H2O
That is,
thing.
but
that's
that is what the
distinction I'm saying.
discussion was, though. It
Yes,
was
but
about
if you were to
moral
put a
value.
beeper on, okay, so here's like a possibility. Let's say you put a beeper on me, and you find out that like, oh, look, it's not human DNA, it's human B DNA. Then I would go, oh, okay.
What do you mean by human B DNA?
I don't know. Whatever the beeper measures. What would the beeper measure?
That you're not belonging to the species Homo sapien. That's
The
only
species
trait
Homo
that you-
sapien is
that's the
that's
only
a
trait that
category
you
of
said-
stuff that can expand or shrink depending on how we define it, though.
Of course, but your trait that you said causes the morally relevant distinction where moral value is lost is just not belonging to the species Homo sapien.
Sure, but there could be greater subdivisions of the species Homo sapien if that's what you measure on a device.
Is that to say that if there was a non-Homo sapien belonging species that you found out you were, that you could possibly value it?
Well, it would be hard to imagine.
Is that yes?
It would be hard to imagine that.
You don't want to answer yes or no.
I mean, I guess yes, that could be the case.
So then it's not the case that necessarily belong to the species Homo sapien matters to you. You can say it's being subjectively similar, or you can say it's beings that are similar. You can name whatever trait or set of traits you want, but you're invited to think about it instead of just
I'm
jumping
not really
and naming
naming
a trait.
necessarily a trait. I'm naming like a category of things.
Is it a thing true of the being, of one set of beings versus another set of beings?
What does it mean by a thing true of?
A characteristic, a property about them. So if I look at humans, you recognize there's a set of characteristics or things true of them, right?
Sure. Although I'm not.
It's not a gotcha. You're not signing off on anything
I
crazy.
don't trust him. I'm not worried about signing off on gotchas.
Oh, okay.
I think that I mean, like,
so
I think that
there's a set of things true of you, Destiny.
Sure, there
right
is
now.
a set of things that are called human beings. Yes, I think scientifically right now it's like Homo sapiens how we define that category of things.
Characteristics. Right. So those are
Okay.
all built off of characteristics.
Sure.
Okay, and so we'll re-explain this again. That the concept of animals have a set of things that are true of them as well, right?
Sure.
Okay, so that means that you do understand the concept of traits, which is just to say things true of the two sets of beings. And again, name the trait is asking where moral value is lost between the two sets of beings. So when you say that the trait is belonging to the species Homo sapien, but I were to remove that thing that's true of the being, in this case you, because of the beep detector, then it would have to follow logically. It's not trying to pull a gotcha because I don't care about whether or not you succumb to that position. I would hope that you would actually be logically consistent and not absurd and say that you do have moral value still.
Yeah,
you're
but the
one who
problem is you're
named
trying to
said
say
you
that the mistake you're making is you're thinking that if you can show that the underlying property that I cared about is somehow different, that would necessarily explode that underlying property, or I never cared about that underlying property at all.
Wait,
when it might be
what
the
do you mean
fact
by
that there might
explode?
be, let me explain. There might have been some old person who says, I like to drink water, and water is important to me, but sometimes the water kills them because they're drinking salt water or something else that's poisonous. And go, okay, well, actually, no. It wasn't the
changing
water.
the context
I'm not
again.
changing the context. It wasn't the water that was important to you. It was the H2O that was important. You just hadn't identified that trait yet, right? So it could be the case that you could identify me as some different species or some finer thing or whatever that I wasn't aware of before, but that wouldn't necessarily say, oh, well, now I'm going to explode my concept of what moral value gets assigned to every single species that exists.
So when name the trait is posited to you, the context is held equal of the two things. So it's, for example, in the as you understand name the trait with regards to veganism, it's killing and eating one set of beings for food versus another. With regards to Trump, how I posed it, I said with regards to stripping away children from mothers in, of course, like an innocent context where, they want to be with each other. So when you say, what I don't understand is when you go back to the radioactive point, where I lose you is in trying to track what.
I don't even think. How do me and Trump even have a distinction on the traits? What are we even talking about there?
Wait. Can I just get?
Actually, I don't even know if that
understand what the
distinction works because me and Trump
radioactive
still identify both as like being like moral humans or whatever. We just assign like
hold on.
different.
Can I understand what you're trying to say about the radioactive point? Because I don't even think I understood what.
This is not an example that comes up in the vegan server. What do you guys normally argue on?
What are you talking about?
It sounds like if you haven't heard like a particular argument before, you can't fathom it. Like you can't follow any of my
I'm asking
analogies or
what
any
your
of my like.
particular view is.
What my particular, I explained it
No,
like 20 times. I'll
not
explain it again for you.
generically,
That's
not
okay.
generically.
Yeah.
That sounds. Wait, hold on. Please don't take advantage of the natural language that I'm defaulting to because I'm just nervous on stage.
I think I'm using.
That sounds like something
First
Trump would
of
do
all,
in
I
front
think
of
I'm using
reporters.
natural language most up here. Okay, you're the one that wants to keep harping back on like using the.
I'm
logic or
just
whatever.
trying to make sure I actually understand you, and it doesn't seem like you're trying to understand me or help me to understand you.
Okay.
So back to the radioactive point. Thank you. Back to the radioactive point. What were you trying to specifically make a point about insofar as this context is concerned? Because if I ask you with regards to one context that's held equal, but the traits about them change, and you mentioned radioactive content, and sometimes it hurts you, sometimes it doesn't, that doesn't sound like it tracks to what I'm, analogizing.
What I'm saying is that if I identify human being as being this foundational trait that I think we all share, that we're all like the thing that gives us moral consideration, and then you say, well, I just measured something, and it's that human being thing that you're valuing is actually not a human being thing, it's something else, then what I would say is, well, I would probably change my definition of human being then to encompass whatever the new thing that you measured was.
So if you would change the trait from your current view, then that's not the trait. What is the trait?
It's not so much that I'm changing
Or a set of traits.
It's not necessarily that I'm changing the trait. It's that the trait was a proxy for something different. Much the same that when people in the past say
That's just meant to mean the same thing.
What?
It's reducible. So if you said
Yeah, but I don't know how reducible anything ultimately is. So the guy that says water might not think water is reducible to a molecule, but like in the future we might know the water's reducible.
Can I explain what I mean when I say reducible instead
Sure.
of it being so? Okay. So when you say you would change human because you would presumably find that hypothetical to be unpalatable to your own preferences, then what it sounds like you're saying is that you would consider Destiny 2.0 or that other version of you to still have moral value. So from your current perspective, you could just recognize that and say that it's not the trait belonging to Homo sapien and just try to think and elaborate on it like you said you would.
Well, I would have to ask like what the differences are.
What differences are of what?
If you're measuring something and you're saying that the science detector is measuring something different, the question would the next question would
Not
be,
belonging to the
difference?
species Homo sapien
Yeah,
because
but they
the
don't.
trait
The,
as I
the
asked
science
you,
detector doesn't measure that, right?
Wait, what?
The science detector doesn't measure ontological categories.
It's stipulated in my hypothetical that it would measure that.
Well, then it feels like you're almost begging the question. Like I don't think I can.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like
What's
you're,
circular?
the fact that you're necessarily like prohibiting me from answering the question in a way that is logically consistent because you're saying
There's a lot of weird language baked in. What do you mean by prohibiting? Because you're able to give whatever sort of answer you want.
Ooga booga.
If you don't like the logical consequences of your view to justify that you would kill Destiny 2.0, all I'm going to say, Destiny, is you should really think about how that's probably because you actually are not like Trump. And I actually did have faith in you. I think you're a lot smarter than that. You don't have to be on the wrong side of history. But every day you wake up and you say, you know what, I could change my view. I could think about this further. You'd still be wealthy. You'd still be popular. You'd still have, all these things going for you. But unfortunately, you just don't want to recognize what Isaac has pinned you on, what Regan Gaines have pinned you on. And that's philosophically. That's not in terms of combat. You can have a private discussion.
Okay, I'll get right on that, okay.
All right, I think we're going to move on now. Put your hands together. He had a really good run. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I am told our next debater is a hardcore Trump supporter. Please put your hands together for Hayden. Hayden, it's your turn.
Hey, what's up, what's up?
Nice to meet you too. Okay.
Nice and close to the mic. You can get right on that one. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not entirely too sure I'm a hardcore Trump supporter. There's a few policies that I actually back, and it doesn't seem like there's too many actual Trump supporters here in Oregon. So,
And all of Oregon?
it's pretty light. I'll give you that.
Okay.
Nice and loud and close to the mic. Thank you.
My question for you is: do you think that the U.S. government should limit restriction or have restrictions on dual citizenship holders within
For Israel?
employment? Oh, for sure.
Are you talking specifically in terms of running for government?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't have a strong opinion on it. I could probably be persuaded.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where that argument ends. So for instance, in the strongest form of it, if we imagine the president of the United States, as of the founding of the country and everything, right? The president of the United States has to be a natural born citizen of the United States. They have to be born with citizenship, right? They can't be naturalized or obtain citizenship after birth. They have to be born a U.S. citizen, right?
Right.
Yeah. And my understanding is the rationale behind that is you don't want to have somebody who's has to make tough decisions as commander in chief, as leader of the free world, as leader of the United States, doing trade agreements when he has to negotiate against his country of origin or something, right? That might be not good.
Right.
Would that logic carry over into dual citizenship? I could see an argument for maybe that being the case. But then my question would be, does that only extend to the presidency? Because I'm pretty sure, for instance, you can be a not natural born citizen. Oh, I know this, right? And be governor of states, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So,
Right.
And I'm pretty sure you can be in Congress and you don't have to be a born U.S. citizen. You can be a senator. So, yeah. So for just for president, maybe it wouldn't matter because I don't know if we would ever elect somebody that would have dual citizenship. I mean, maybe it would be something we have to explore more. But yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, what about regarding U.S. intelligence? And let's say we have dual citizenship holders that worked in prior foreign governments, coming over and obtaining government positions. Would you say that there's probably, I don't know, kind of special interest in there, possible?
There might be, but I feel like that would have more to do with jobs and places you're coming from, more so than necessarily having dual citizenship or dual nationalities. If somebody worked, in the fucking Kremlin, if they were a government operative there, or somebody was high up in the Mossad or something, and then they came and they were occupying high positions in the CIA or NSA. Should I say they'd be banned? Maybe not, but they would have to pass a hell of a security screening, I think. But this is all going to be stuff that you're asked on your SF-86 and everything anyway, because having dual loyalty, or I shouldn't say dual loyalty, but having connections to other countries are things that get you more scrutinized.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think that there's going to be too much to be disagreeing on that one then. I'll give you one. Regarding the border, do you think that Trump's current administration has done a good job protecting our border?
Not that much, I think. I guess it depends on what we mean when we say protecting the border. I feel like when we're talking about the immigration stuff or the border, like when a Democrat is in office, I feel like we have a very broad understanding of what it means to protect the border, protect the country. One of those things being all of the illegal immigrants that are supposedly here. But I feel like when Trump came in, he did his executive order to curb illegal immigration, which is fine. But I feel like we haven't done much in terms of exporting all the illegal immigrants. And according to Trump, the number gets 5 million bigger every few months. But now we're up to 25 million people supposedly came in illegally under Biden. And if we don't have like a comprehensive way to address immigration issues, we haven't done anything to address any of the real problems, we're just kind of relying on EOs. Like if I was a conservative, I would be unsatisfied because I feel like the next Democrat president could come in and just undo his EO, and now we're back to square one.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I would definitely say that I don't think he's actually nearly reached, I would say, actual record deportations, or at least he hasn't impressed me entirely this go around. So.
Well, I think the big issue, and I feel like everyone should have this criticism of Trump, especially if you're a conservative. I think the big issue is that Trump's leadership is just very bad. So even if he wanted to get some things done, he's going about it like in the worst way possible. Like I feel like there's a world where Trump could have started deportations or approached deportations in a way rhetorically that would be really hard for even people on the left to oppose, right? And it'd be politically popular. He would get a lot of photo ops. Like imagine, the idea of like we're going to go through all of the felons and convicted like people in every state, all the convicted felons in every state. We're going to look for illegals in all the roles, and then we're going to deport these people. Like we're going to explicitly and specifically do this. Like it's a high number of deportations, probably low resource cost that people are already in jail and prison or whatever else, right? And then like on the left, like it's a harder thing to fight against than people going to Home Depot and doing raids, or whatever's going on here in Portland and whatever's going on around the country. Like so, I feel like the divisiveness that he creates around the topic makes it more of a lightning rod than it probably needs to be. You've got that hallway in, is it New York City, where there's like fucking ICE agents are like lining the hallway, catching people like going to court. Like these are, whatever you think about illegal immigrants, the ones that are actually showing up for their court dates are probably not the ones you want to be going after first, unless they're just like easy pickings. So yeah, I feel like if you wanted to do anything about immigration, just approaching it the most divisive manner possible makes it even harder to realistically get anything done, especially after we've seen the ICE budget grow 10x and everything too. Like, are we even going to see results for that massive increase in spending?
No, I mean, honestly, at this point, I really don't think so. And my hope is kind of starting to dwindle, which is why I said I can't really come up here as a hardcore Trump supporter.
Hayden, may I ask, what is it you find appealing about Donald Trump at all? Or what you ever found appealing?
So originally I was pretty impressed with his policies regarding school choice and trying to bring parents' attention back into schools and actually giving them a voice when it comes to their students' education. But I can very clearly see that this administration, and honestly current government system, is not running under its own power, or it's not running under...
Just a little closer to the mic.
Not running under its own influence. So at this point, it really does make it hard to be a Trump supporter in this day and age. And that's why I'm trying, or at least I'm switching perspectives and taking a more independent approach to this. I can't really say that the Democratic Party is doing anything beneficial for us at all. I would say the Republican Party, in terms of fighting for actual personal freedom, is actually up there a little bit.
Okay, wait, I got to ask, okay?
You're good, man.
Okay.
Go for it.
If we're going to do the Zog thing, okay?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Trump 1 have been such an indicator that this guy was a massive Israel cuck? Like, wouldn't that have just been known always? Like, how is there a surprise there? This guy moved the embassy, he did the Abraham Accords, he bragged about getting all these other nations to, like, make good with Israel. Like, he's never held Netanyahu to account for anything. Like, this guy was, like, always the, like, ultra-Israeli simp.
No, 100%. And it's always been something that I've personally spoke against. I'm personally anti-war. So for our country to continue to sit in the Middle East after years on years of pointless wars, that was one critical point that I had pretty much the whole time in terms of Trump's candidacy. But on like a personal note, when it came to his policies regarding schools and the stuff that would actually affect me with having a child, I was all for it.
I'm kind of curious, when you talk about like school choice, like what is the thing that you like about that, I guess conceptually, or how do you feel about that? Or, like talk me through that, I guess.
I mean, personally, I think that when it comes to school curriculums, parents need to, I would say, first say. At least in terms of viewership, it should be more of a.
I feel like, I mean, like there's like your superintendent meetings, the student council meetings, like, or not student council, I'm sorry, you have like parent teacher council where you can go and talk to your teachers about what the students learn. You've got the school district wide like superintendent meetings where you go and you can vote and scream at them and everything there. Like I feel like parents have decent say / insight into what goes on there if they want. Like my understanding is there is no like federally dictated curriculum. I don't know if there is state dictated curriculum, and maybe it depends state by state, but.
No, it's definitely county dictated. But no, I've definitely sat in on a couple, and it's usually pretty silencing when it comes to the parents. If there's any form of opposition to, I would say, democratic views or at least liberal point of views from any parents, it's pretty much instantly shut down, especially from where I'm from, out here in Beaverton.
Sure, and not to be mean to you, but like, wouldn't you kind of expect that if parents have a big say in it? Like, I imagine there's probably like a liberal parent that lives way the fuck out in rural, Texas or whatever, and they're like, when I, suggest that we should be able to read the gay books or whatever for our middle schoolers, like all the other conservative parents shut me down. Like, I mean, you'd kind of expect that if it's a democratic choice, right? Like, we probably shouldn't want the president to change that, because if they were going to change that, it'd probably go even worse for you if you're living in Oregon, I would imagine, right?
No, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because I don't think that it's openly displayed within the school system that the curriculums that they're teaching have I would say a negative effect towards children. I'd say the type of material that we started to push is, I mean, I would just say pornographic at this point. So, an example, you want me to give an example of what? Like a graphic novel or a book? Well, okay, well, while this one isn't a formal debate and I don't have sources directly on me, I would be happy to look up a book for you that has been shown to display pornographic material, at least within words. You said what? How many years ago?
The audience member asked when the last time you knew somebody in public school up here.
I have 8 siblings that are currently within public school. 8
a
siblings.
sibling or 8?
8 siblings.
God damn. Okay.
Oh yeah, dude.
Okay, so I mean, like the go-to book was the I don't remember what it was, but it was the one. It was Tim Pool talked about this book all the time. I think it was his favorite book. I think I read this thing cover to cover like 30 times. This is one of those things. So this is like a really common complaint that I have with our politics today, and I would argue a lot of this is because of how the right has decided to approach everything. Is that I feel like it's like impossible to have a conversation because the starting assumption is that the other side is like literally fucking evil as fuck. So I think that. Again, going back to like how you frame things, like assuming that if I was going to some parent meeting and we were talking about like the reading literature list for next year or something, or even like books available in the library, if there was a parent and the parent brought up this concept of like, hey, this is a school that goes up to grade 6. There is material in the library that personally I think is kind of like objectionable or not okay. I would either want like like a section where in order for a child to check out a book, they need like a parent to sign off on it, or I would prefer that not to be there at all. This is my opinion, and this is what we do. I think that would be, from my perspective, I feel like it would be a really hard position to fight against without being unhinged. But when they come in and the claim is, the FBI is calling in false bomb threats on us and arresting us for no reason because the LGBTQI agenda is trying to like mutilate our children's genitals and show them like trans drag queens, like it becomes harder to talk to their side because like, well, I feel like if I'm making a concession towards that side, I'm conceding some part of their narrativizing of what's actually going on, So I feel like the obsession on the right with like the trans stuff and the obsession with them trying to like brainwash and poison kids' minds. I feel like it's just such a malicious and malevolent framing of it that there's no possible way you can make progress on the conversation there.
Well, I mean, I view it more as a gateway. Once you start letting in the small material, it leads into the bigger question of what else can we allow to come in.
I mean, even if that was the case, it wouldn't change that it could be framed like in a more, I don't want to say compassionate. I can't believe I can't say. I should say in a compassionate way towards children, right? That like a way where it's like, I think everybody probably wants what's best for their kids. If you want to read this material at home, you can do it. But I feel like that framing is better than just like the, I'm going to dictate all the curriculum because I think you guys are evil groomers or whatever. Especially, I don't know how old you are, I'm 36, but like I remember, a while ago, I don't know if they fight about it as much, they did for a little bit. They wanted to shove back like prayer in school and all this stuff, has to be said and everything, and we need to have places for people to pray and all this. And some people consider that like, well, hey, why are you taking time to pray out in my public school, in the morning or whatever? Like, I think that's inappropriate. So like this idea that some stuff is okay to shove down kids' throats and other stuff's not okay. I just the framing is so bad. It's just impossible to talk about it. I think. I think it should be deeply concerning if it's a thing you feel strongly about.
No, I mean, I still just view it as a gateway, though. Like once you do accept small things into schools, I feel like the school system just kind of moves forward with it. They see that opening. They see that they can indoctrinate a child, and they run with it.
What does that, I mean, like when we say indoctrinate, what do you like? Like isn't all education like?
Well,
what are we talking about exactly?
Well, I'll just be state my objective. The gay agenda, LGBTQ agendas.
Well, like, are we like? Is the goal to like make them gay or?
I mean, I would definitely say demasculate for sure.
In what way do you feel like you see this? I guess like in the strongest way. Yeah.
I think it's very prevalent in Gen Z. Like we've seen a huge decline when it comes to. I mean, I would say teenage boys going into military age, and a decline within those numbers, or the honest decline within sports too.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Is that actually like our young boys like participating in sports less?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, okay, so maybe not on a national level, but at least around here for sure.
Do we think if that was the case, would we really attribute that to like the demasculinating? I don't know if that's the word, but like the what's the word I'm looking for? Getting rid of masculinity in school or whatever. Yeah, the emasculation, I guess, of children or whatever. Like, do we think it's that, or do we think it could have more to do with like internet devices and phones and other stuff? Like,
I think it's being pushed through the internet and the phones.
Sure, but not necessarily like schools or teachers, right?
Well, them too. But I think that we live in like ultra technological world at this point, where we are literally using technology for every aspect of our media, entertainment, education, and it's just our mainstream. Without the internet, there's really no education coming in. Because I mean, I don't remember the last time I've actually seen somebody pick up a history book that wasn't a PDF, unless they were actually physically required to go pick it up from the bookstore.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Something I've said a lot is I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about how the internet has like fundamentally changed our life, like in a lot of ways, and nobody talks about it much because it's not as fun as narrativizing about like evil conservatives or the gay agenda or whatever. But I feel like I guess there's a couple things. We can go on this for a while, but like I think there's an issue with people getting brain rotted today. I think that definitely happens, but I also think that we tend to like romanticize the past a lot. And I know especially younger people get mad when I say this because they think that like the boomer life was perfect. People might. How old are you? Do you say?
20.
Okay, you're 20. Okay, like I will say very confidently when I'm 36 that back when I was in high school, even when the internet it wasn't really that prevalent, it wasn't as much of a thing. Nobody was picking up a history book and reading it. Like they were either watching TV or they were playing video games or they were smoking weed or they were maybe they're outside playing maybe, but like. The idea that we like have fallen from some ultra-educated, ultra-elite society because of the internet. And I know I'm being a little bit hyperbolic when I say that. I do think we have challenges related to like moderating how children especially engage with like social media and everything. But I don't think I see any real push from the administration on that particular topic or subject as well.
I don't think so. And I think that, it's obvious that there's things that I would change about this administration.
Yeah.
Or I would do it differently if I had to go at it. So
like, so this is like the thing that I guess I would want to see. Okay, because I think that I actually do believe that we do need two strong parties in the United States. I think that when parties are like stuck to their own, I think they get absolutely fucking insane. And I've said this a lot, but I feel like you're kind of illustrating this point that one of the worst things about all of the crazy conversations that the right wants to rip us away from and into is that we don't get to have any like actual conversations about fixing things, right? So like if we were having a conversation, like a national level conversation, imagine if RFK, instead of being so, hyper fixated on vaccines and autism and Tylenol, whatever the fuck else he woke up and the brainworm told him to talk about that day. Like, imagine if he came out and his like huge initiative was, we're going to talk about how social media and cell phones and the internet like affect teens. That would be a deeply interesting topic, and I would love to see like the fights all across the country on that topic, because I think it's a topic worth fighting for. There are things that how many people in here are like under the age of like 28? Okay, a fair bit of you. Okay. So not to knock you guys, but like I hear some classrooms, first of all, even just hearing this is amazing. I hear some classrooms say that like we're going to start taking all phones at the beginning of class or whatever. And I hear Gen Z like lose their mind. And then sometimes I hear like Gen X, like their parents will say things like, you can't take the phone away from the kid. That's crazy. And in my mind, I'm like, bro, if we got caught with phones, they take that shit for the week. The dean would grab that shit and that would be in his fucking office and you'd have to go and exchange like a detention to get it back or something. So the idea that that's like become an expected and normal thing. Also, I can't imagine. Like I played the fucking Phoenix on a TI-83. I played video games on my calculator if I could. I couldn't imagine having a smartphone in class. That's crazy. But when everything becomes so hyper-partisan and the conversations become so horrible, like one of the things that has triggered me so hard, probably one of the most triggered I've ever been, was watching Piers Morgan on some panel show talking to a bunch of people about how ingenious RFK's diet plan for school children was, and talking about like, I bet the Democrats could never fight against this, even though they're trying to, and they look crazy, and like how stupid that RFK comes out with this brilliant trap, and he says the most agreeable thing ever, and all these crazy Dems are fighting against it. And like I know that you're a bit younger, but like there was a huge push in the Obama administration with Michelle Obama to do like a big revamp of school lunches and to make them healthier. And Republicans went kicking and screaming on that, and they were making fun of like vegetables, and they were talking about how eating, like green stuff was like horrible, and like, how kids should be able to do whatever they want, and they're trying to like do these horrible things. And now they've like all switched their positions because now their side is saying it, and it's like, okay, well, it would have been nice to have a better conversation about this a long time ago instead of being unhinged on it. And I feel like now the conversations we're going to be having for the next 4 years are, what pill causes autism, or what dyes are we no longer allowed to eat because they're cancer causing, and that's it. And it's like, Jesus, like that's like 4 more years of wasted conversation, I think.
Yeah. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
You said that you think it's important for us to have 2 strong parties. What if those 2 strong parties are both influenced by an outside source? Oh, yeah.
I guess my question would be, if the 2 strong parties are influenced so heavily by an outside source, why did it take them like fucking 50 years to move that fucking embassy to Jerusalem?
I mean, long-term strategy, I guess.
Yeah, very long term, I guess. I think foreign influence in the country should always be declared through FAR or whatever. I know that there's a lot of disagreement on whether or not APAC is like a foreign lobbying thing because Candace owns and everybody else like jumps on it. I don't think there's ever been good proof of that shown.
You don't think that they should register?
No, because APAC is supposed to be just a domestic lobbying group that doesn't take outside influence or outside, financial contributions. Now, if it was discovered they did, that would be a FAR violation, and then, it should be showed, and they should be held criminally or civilly liable, and then they should have to register or be disbanded, I guess. But like anybody in the U.S. can lobby for or advocate for basically any cause they want, whether it's pro-Russian stuff or pro-Qatari stuff or pro-Mexican stuff. It just needs to be declared if you're taking outside money or getting direction from an outside country.
I mean, for sure. But anytime that they've been pressured, they've shown heavy resilience to do release anything.
Well, I think they probably only release what they're legally required to release. I don't think they should or would have to release anything extra than that.
No, but I think that the constant refusal to, I would say, abide to the standards of other countries is a little weird.
What standards? What do you mean?
Well, I would say that the same way that we receive APAC funds would be equivalent to Qatari or.
Well, I think don't they try to be? Well, I'm gonna say don't they like other countries try to be more subversive or secretive about it? But I imagine you would probably feel the same about APAC. If APAC was doing, in a secretive way, was getting money in a way that was not okay from other countries and they weren't declaring it, I would say that's a problem. But
until there's any evidence to show that, it's it's not really a question for debate.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, I don't care about it much because I feel like there are a lot of like coinciding interests sometimes. There's a whole other can of worms or whatever between what Israel wants in the Middle East or what Saudi Arabia wants and what the U.S. wants. So what people, I'm sure you've done like the USS Liberty memes and the clean break memo memes and everything, and that, actually Israel controls all our foreign policy when it comes to the Middle East. I mean, like if that was the case, then I would say, well, okay, well, it seems like I don't know if we're getting enough benefit out of this relationship or not. But yeah, I mean, you've seen recently the biggest, Israeli simp in the world, Donald Trump, has kind of been blowing up Netanyahu a little bit recently because Netanyahu is going crazy with his blank check. And didn't he just like truth out or whatever, some bullshit making fun of Netanyahu for not accepting Hamas deal or something? Am I making this up? I feel like this was this morning or yesterday.
It was definitely yesterday.
Okay.
Until about I want to say 6 hours ago now, in his last recent press release where he was pretty much refuting it and going back to how much he loves Israel. So
Sure. But I mean, like, doesn't he do the same thing with like Putin?
Interestingly, I have not heard Putin been talked about too much recently.
Well, I feel like his rhetoric against Putin has gotten quite negative after the 2 weeks after the Alaska summit thing they had.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe it'll get positive again. But they've gone like back and forth where, and even with Israel, I remember when I think it was Israel where the planes were going, and I think Trump was like truthing out, like, turn those goddamn planes around. You guys are supposed to be doing peace right now. But then it's happened with Russia too, where they supposedly make a peace deal, and then Russia starts bombing Ukraine more, and then all of a sudden, Trump's like, I can't believe Putin's doing this. Is he playing me for a fool? And it's like, well, maybe. All this to say that I guess like it's a broader conversation. Like, I don't think it's that compelling that there's like some other nation controlling U.S. interests as much as it's just like stupid leaders and stuff sometimes. Yeah, but
I got one more question for Hayden. What would it have taken for you to vote for Kamala?
Nothing. Being that close to half of her policies were just repeats of Trump's, no, just nothing.
Which policies?
The only thing she had going for her was her laugh.
even if it was like, what if we could have known that Kamala would have been like a huge like thorn in Netanyahu's side? That wouldn't convince you?
You said what?
What if Kamala was like, fuck Israel?
No, probably not.
Really?
No.
Wait, why the, what's the big push away, I guess?
I don't entirely like her criminal cases when she worked within DOJ for California.
Sure. Wait, why not? Or what about it?
I don't believe that the criminalization of
Truancy?
black men for extended periods of times for low-level marijuana crimes is something that should be, I think it should be something that's accounted for.
I understand what you're saying, but I am so curious if this applies to all of the ways that Trump enforces the law against people across the country.
Well, no, I mean, you asked me directly about Kamala Harris and...
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a comparison between the two, so I'm just curious.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's definitely a lesser of two evils in the sense. And
But you
that's
think the
kinda what I
lesser is
came down
Trump,
to.
so I'm just curious what would move you to like Kamala being the lesser.
Originally, I thought the lesser was Trump, but now my position now is there's no good, there's no better on either side.
Okay.
So
There's no meaningful distinction. Okay, because and then I'm just curious, what are like the top three things I guess that you care about in terms of like U.S. policy, like that would come from federally from the presidency, that things that they could advocate for?
a complete shutdown on our border, actual mass deportation across the board. Like I'm talking 23 million in numbers in terms of deportation. And then I think our foreign policy definitely needs to be looked at.
Okay, I'm just curious because I haven't spent much time in here. Are there a lot of illegal immigrants in Oregon?
You said what?
Are there a lot of illegal immigrants in Oregon?
Illegals?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I guess if they do, and you think that it's a significant enough impact that it's like a top 3 issue for you in terms of deporting people like this?
Yeah.
Okay. If Trump finishes his term and we don't get any like change in like legislation, and if we just kind of like trot along the same path that we're at now, I know legislation isn't necessarily the only way you can do things, obviously, not in this administration, but like if we continue to get like, 32 got deported this day because we rated a thing, but like nothing really substantial changes at the end of 4 years, do you feel like that's kind of like been a big failure on Trump's part?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, I have to be honest about it.
Sure.
stay
Okay.
consistent.
The audience member said you voted for the big failure, right?
I heard him.
Oh no, I'm repeating for the stream, so they can hear it. Not
Okay.
for you. Sorry, I'm sorry. No,
Oh.
just so the stream people can hear it. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Hayden had a really good run. Put your hands together for Hayden. Rock and roll.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Good stuff. All right, up next we have Mr. Simon. Simon, you're up next. Everyone put your hands together for Simon. Keep it going. It's a long walk. Here we go. He's got his water bottle and everything.
Hey, what's up, Destiny?
Hey, what's up, Simon?
Hey, let's talk about your rhetoric, right? Like, it's pretty hot,
Yes, honey.
pretty flaming,
Okay.
right?
I'm ready for my rhetoric.
I'm just
flattening.
saying this. Whatever happened to, like, I don't know, when they go low, we go high? Whatever happened to that? All of a sudden, we're mocking people after they get shot? Like, that doesn't seem great at all.
Well, I think what
Doesn't seem
started
like
happening
virtuous.
was the DOJ started openly exploiting or extorting politicians like Eric Adams. I think that the DOJ started to like openly hunt for and now file criminal charges against political enemies. I think that every single cabinet member like has been involved in fabricating some story to the American public that's like clearly and obviously not true. It's like Tulsi Gabbard's weird fabrication of the Obama stuff from 2016, 2017. Kash Patel and everybody else involved in like firing people that like are giving political answers to interview questions. Like I think that the situation has gotten like so dire that I think that it calls for a little bit more like strict conversation in regards to like this is not acceptable. Like we need to kind of bring things back to the reasonable land.
Okay, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to concede. I think everything you just said is completely
All
correct.
right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Hey,
Simon.
whoa,
Okay,
hold up,
go ahead.
hold
Okay,
up.
go ahead.
Not so quick there. I've seen your debate strategies. No. I'm going to concede. Everything you said, totally correct. But in my mind, that isn't an effective strategy for winning, which I think we both care about. We both care about winning office and keeping Democrats in office, right? It sucks not being in power. I think in order to win power, we are going to need to take a higher road. I think that the Democratic base itself doesn't like super edgy or super online content. Don't get me wrong, I do. I'm great, but I'm a degenerate like you guys. Like, I love that shit, but I don't think if we're trying to reach across the aisle or even get moderates, they're going to be okay with like humor around Trump getting assassinated or like the Charlie Kirk stuff. And granted, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to like sit here and read your receipts or whatever. Like that's not who I am. But in my mind, in order to overcome this evil, we need to show some sort of virtue. And I don't think the Democratic Party can appeal to people's degeneracy like the Republicans. And I'm sorry for my Republican friends out there, but like I think that like I wouldn't necessarily evilness, but like I do think that the Republican mind is animated by fear in a way that
So-
Democrats maybe aren't.
I actually disagree with this. I think that we all have like pretty similar like basic or like theoretical drives that are I think actually largely identical. We just when it comes to like plugging in the particulars, I think that we differ there. And then we think that we're a lot different, but in actuality, I don't think we are that different. We can drill down into specific examples of that if we need to, but all this to say that like one thing that is underlying all of our interactions in public, in politics, and everything in a democracy is we have this like common sense of, and when I say common, I mean common among the people, of like civil decency. And that if that civil decency is gone, then you have to recognize at some point that there's like a different game being played and that you have to find a way to bring the game back to reality, or you have to start like acknowledging how unhinged the situation is getting.
And so, okay, I hear what you're saying. You're saying, okay, right now it feels like we're in an MMA fight. I don't know if anyone else does MMA, but I do a lot of combat sports.
Okay.
It's an MMA fight. The Republicans are bringing a knife to this battle, and
Sure.
we're showing up wearing nothing but like little shorts.
Sure.
Right? And you're saying, okay, Democrats need to have a knife, maybe even a sword, to be able to
Sure.
play this game.
Yeah.
I don't see how if both the Democrats and the Republicans are bringing weapons to this fight, it's going to be a fair fight. And I acknowledge it's currently not a fair fight. But I don't see how we're lowering the temperature by increasing it again, right? Like if I've got a flu, I'm not trying to like, I don't know anything about like medical stuff, but like I'm not trying to like bury myself in like heated blankets to try to like make the flu go away, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
trying to get
but I mean
cold.
like there are two different ways that you can lower the temperature, right? What are the two different ways?
One would be appealing to better angels, in my
Kind of,
mind.
but both sides have to do it.
Yeah, but shouldn't that start with us? Like,
Sure.
shouldn't we be the people who start that?
Yeah. What's that word you're using though? Start implies
Yeah,
they follow
both
through.
sides are both
so
doing
either
it, yeah.
both sides agree to bring the temperature down, or one side is eliminated.
But that's what I'm saying is like it feels like we're moving much closer to the eliminating category.
I think we do if we concede everything and we let them carry on with their agenda.
But what I'm trying to say is like I don't know if our super edgy online nature is necessarily good for the Democratic Party to begin with. Like I don't know if that same thing appeals to like my dad or like my mom in that same way that like they would have gone blue but went red for like random other issues as well, or because of like
I
rhetoric.
think that everybody has the edgy stuff that they like can appreciate and laugh at. I don't think that some people like edginess and some people don't like edginess. Like I'm sure there were a lot of people,
Sure.
you know, like your typical woke. We're in fucking Portland, okay? The LGBT people that don't like it when you say the R slur or
Yeah.
whatever else. And I'm sure a lot of these motherfuckers probably in this audience were retweeting a bunch of like Luigi Mangione memes. They're like, oh, fucking epic when he killed this dude. Right. So like I feel like everybody has like their epic stuff and their edgy stuff that they enjoy making fun of. We just like really when I feel like when somebody's being edgy, I think that it's more usually, unless you're awesome and fair like me, who can be edgy about all things. I think oftentimes when people are edgy, what they're really showing you is what they like and what they don't like. You know, there's a ton of memes related to the Charlie Kirk stuff recently, but you can do it to anything where people are like, oh, it's funny when you joke about this and this and this and this and this, but don't you dare make fun of this thing, you know?
Yeah, and let me just say, I want to totally concede, like, when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, Don Jr. said some insane shit. Like, I'm not saying that, like, both sides are equal here. We didn't see, like, Nancy Pelosi say anything crass when, like...
Sure, but like when he says that unhinged shit, like what is it? What is the effect on both sides? Like, what is the effect on the left when he says unhinged stuff?
Don Jr. is messaging to his audience, hey, this is what we're all thinking, versus Democrats I would say Democrats aren't usually thinking that when Charlie Kirk gets shot. I don't think there's too many Democrats that are sitting here being like, this was a good thing, ha ha ha.
I mean, there might be. I mean, I
Okay.
can't speak to every, especially all the edgy younger people, right?
Sure.
But like the messaging from the leaders is different. But what I'm trying to say is that like when they say that, and this sounds bad, but like we have to acknowledge it. Like there is a great power in attacking and dehumanizing the other side. Much the same that there would be a great power in bringing weapons to an MMA fight. Like you would win more. You know?
I know, but like, listen to the words we're using here. We're talking about dehumanizing other Americans, and I get that these other Americans
and
have
that's
done,
what that's what MAGA's been doing.
Hey,
know, but that
Simon,
doesn't-
just
yeah.
hold the mic a little higher. It's
Hey,
just
my
causing
bad.
sa-
My bad.
No, sorry. With
Lower?
your bottom hand just away from the bottom of the mic. Yeah. Hold it near
Yep.
the top of the mic.
Okay, top of the mic.
Perfect. Just
Okay.
like that.
Hey,
and
my
we
bad.
just gotta we can't touch on our bodies the bottom part.
Okay.
You too, Mr. Steven.
Jeez.
Thanks.
I would never.
Can you believe him? He's yelling at us now. Oh my
It's
gosh.
crazy, man.
He's trying
No
to
high road
dehumanize
for that
us.
dude. And he's fucking Canadian, so.
Oh my God! What? An
All
American?
right, I'm next, motherfucker.
Oh my gosh! I didn't realize we had an Ameribu here. Okay.
But like, you use the MMA example,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So let's say that we had perfect information on both sides. Okay,
Sure.
Let's start that assumption. Okay,
Yeah.
and let's say that we're gonna have a big MMA match. Okay, 10 people on one roster, 10 people on the other with
Yeah.
the team format. I don't
Yeah,
know.
okay.
But like, we know that the other side will know if they bring weapons or not.
Sure.
Right? Let's say that we have a rule that says if they bring weapons, we're not going to bring weapons. If the other side really wants to win, what do you think they're going to do?
They're gonna bring weapons.
For sure. But
Yeah.
what if we have the rule that says if they bring weapons, we're bringing at least the same amount of redistricting in California. We're bringing at least the same amount of weapons to the other side. Don't you think that maybe in that world, even though it seems like we're being more violent,
Sure.
aren't we kind of like bringing the temperature down because it's like, okay, well, fuck, maybe we shouldn't do this because it's going to like bite us in the ass.
Again, I hear what you're saying with like the redistricting. I just think that there's a category difference between redistricting and then talking about like maybe dead kids that have died in a flood, or like Charlie Kirk's assassination, or like the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. Like I think there's a difference between these things. Like I'm all for redistricting. Yeah, fuck yeah. Why the fuck should like Republicans in California get a vote? Fuck them. If like Democrats in Texas.
Yeah, but I
can't.
think that like making fun of dead kids in Texas, I think that when you have a whole bunch of people, and we see it a lot with Gavin Newsom's Twitter account, for instance, like there's on a baser sick level, there's a pleasure that I get watching Republicans snowflake out when I'm making jokes that they don't like.
Okay, that is true. That is
And
true.
I know that, like, I point to the Asmongold example of him being
Yeah.
like, well, I can't make fun of this because Dustin's saying. But, like, I feel like the goal should be, if there's enough outrage in response to jokes like that and you feel bad about it, good, you should. They're crass jokes. They're tasteless. They're impacting a small group of people. But
Yeah.
maybe the next time something happens on the other side, maybe that feeling comes back and you're like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe this is, like, a huge piece of shit thing to actually do because Republicans Republicans have been undeterred
Yeah.
in their dehumanization of other
Okay.
people for decades now. So much so that like just the simple fact that Vance can go on stage. We had the moment even with Kamala and Trump.
Yeah.
They're eating the cats and the dogs, and like it's funny, but like it's
full
also
on
like
dehumanizing.
crazy.
Yeah, no, I hear
And
what you're
Vance admits
saying.
that it's like not even real.
So then, but is turnabout fair play here? Like, let's say next presidential candidate comes up and Gavin Newsom, God hope. Let's say Gavin Newsom comes up and he's like, Republicans, they're killing your pets. They're coming after he's making up conspiracy theories at the same level. We wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't
like
think
that,
when it
right?
comes to like actually lying, I think that's like a morally not good
Okay.
thing to do.
Okay,
right?
sure.
But
So,
like
but
in terms
let's
of
say
like
he's
extreme rhetoric,
mocking then.
I don't necessarily know. Maybe should Gavin Newsom, should the presidential candidate be doing it? You know, maybe
Okay.
not.
And
But what
there's
I'm
a
saying is that
distinction
like what I'm
between
saying is that like
candidate, yeah.
we're having all these conversations. Like, what should the limits be for our side? The other side doesn't have that at
No,
all.
obviously-
right?
obviously
if you
not.
have watched like Matt Walsh's Twitter account over the
No,
past
no,
like
it's
month,
insane. It's absolutely insane.
crazy.
Or my just basic Republican friends, like yeah,
Or Trump's, yeah.
yeah, the
Trump
fucking
is it,
president,
yeah.
yeah, good point. No,
But
I
like
hear
it's
that.
like
I hear
so
all
like
that.
it feels kind of weird
Yeah.
to be like it feels like for the MMA thing like we're having like a really heated debate over whether we should bring
Totally.
like brass knuckles or not, and the other side's like upgraded to like AK.
No, yeah, they're moving on to
and
some other shit.
AR-15s.
I'm just saying that like there seems to be a higher ground we are losing clearly by engaging in like rhetoric that is dehumanizing, and I
maybe,
think
but
that's
I mean
a,
like I feel like
think
the
it's a tragedy.
highest ground ever were like the fucking Obamas. These people were like picture perfect.
Well, yeah, and I
And
would
we got
say
Trump right after.
and that's the point. Is like I think that we need to return to an Obama.
But we
like,
lost after Obama.
Yeah, we also okay. I hear what you're saying. Maybe my argument is too feelings based. Maybe it's too like I'm reading too
Well,
much
it's
Marcus
not feelings
Aurelius.
based.
I don't
It's
know.
that, like,
yeah.
like I understand the feeling, but I think the issue is you're just not used to dealing. This sounds really bad. You're not used to dealing with something so malevolent on the other side, right? Like it's an incomputable thing that the other side could actually be so barbaric and
Callous.
dehumanizing. But like I'll say, I don't think that like an average MAGA person's like rotten to the core. I think it's like the whole
Sure.
Republican infrastructure, media apparatus.
So-
Because when you talk to these people, they genuinely do believe the things that they're saying.
No,
and
I
I mean,
hear
if
you.
you believed all the same things they believe, you'd probably be like, well, fuck, maybe they are trying to chop my kid's dick off. I don't know. Like, like it could be that these people. Well, no, I think a lot of these people genuinely do believe these things.
Yeah.
But like that, there has to be some way to like hold the current conservative rhetoric accountable. And I think when that accountability exists, I think people stop doing it. And right now, there's just none of that.
Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying, Shalino. I appreciate you in this sphere. Maybe I'm disagreeing, but I think most of my disagreement is less factual based, more emotional based. Can I ask another question, or am I going to get kicked out? Okay, great. Okay, we kind of mentioned our last conservative friend that came up and talked mentioned. I don't know, kind of like a less masculinized presence, or like he was talking about it in ways that I maybe would disagree with, but I do think that like masculinity is a key factor. I think young men right now in America are suffering. I'm curious to know what you would say, advice to young men, maybe somebody in high school. How do they live a fulfilling life? And it doesn't have to be like just highly masculine, but like I'm curious to know, do you think young men are
Listen,
suffering right now?
It's a 666 rule, okay? What do you? I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, what?
Nothing. That's a big question. I don't.
Yeah,
fucking
hey,
know.
my
I
bad,
don't
my
know.
bad.
I think that on the, I mean, like one broad criticism I've had for a long time on the left is we have a really hard time talking to majority classes.
Sure.
So like talking to white people is really hard for the left.
Yep.
Talking to men is really hard for the left.
Yeah.
That's why I like the, as kind of corny as it was, like I think the white guys or white dudes for Harris, as goofy as that was, like I thought it was like,
I was there
yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, well, at least they're like not afraid to talk about it. I
Yeah.
think that Gavin Newsom, like being willing to say we've put together some like commission or council to talk about
That was
men's
huge.
issues. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's nice.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this again, like I think that we have a few really big corrosive like core problems in the United States, and I think that we talk about a lot of other things, but I think a lot of these other things are like byproducts of some of the core problems.
Sure.
So when we talk about like masculinity, when you talk about like toxic masculinity, right? This is a concept that is as old as time, and everybody understands it, right?
Sure.
So even though like it's been, feminists have taken it, and now conservatives hate hearing it or whatever, like every single male coming of age movie story, all of them revolve
Yep.
around some guy.
Yep.
Every sports movie is like he's a hothead. He never passes the ball. He says fuck you to the coach. He runs off and he does his own thing, and then he like watches some coach dance around with his disabled daughter on the ice rink, and he's like, oh okay, well I'm gonna pass the puck more,
Yep.
okay, all right. Mighty Ducks is a great series. Fuck all you guys, right? But like this is like the overcoming of like the hot-headed young male. And if you're an older guy, hopefully you've had this like personal journey in your life, you know, where
Yeah,
it's like,
totally.
100%.
I sure have, yeah.
Yeah. The issue is that like I think that the thing I said before is that like the reason why it's good to have two strong parties is because like when there's a tension between two different forces, it forces both sides to be a little bit commensurate with the other, like to be able to communicate with the other side. And then in that communication and in the back and forth, you arrive at something hopefully a little bit more sane. So right now, I think that because the left kind of became I don't want to say totally captured, but like there were issues relating to, you know, representation of women in colleges or minority rights or whatever. Like it swings a little bit too far in that direction, and we get cringe shit like BIPOC or whatever the fuck else, I don't know, super progressive people talk about. But then on the right, it's like, you know, my male role model is fucking Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, the fuck
That's
we doing here?
crazy.
Yeah, or like the Liver King or some shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like, there's no counterbalance there. That's just like absolutely
that's
absurd.
another
Yeah.
piece of it too. Is like one of the reasons why I think young men right now are gravitating more towards Hassan is because, and I'm sorry, said that out loud. Ugh, gross, lame. But like honestly, he's a big dude that weightlifts, that like talks some shit. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's something that
I kind of understand what you're saying. I
my
don't think
monkey
that-
brain likes that. You know, that's why I like Joe Rogan.
Sure,
Big dude,
Joe Rogan for
talks
sure.
shit,
I don't know
smokes weed, cool as fuck.
I don't know if Hassan is attracting like the people looking for like
Nah, maybe
masculinity
not.
examples.
Yeah,
or
maybe
whatever.
not. Maybe not. Maybe that's just my
Sure.
just like looking at him like, oh, those biceps.
I understand what you're saying. Like, I do think that I think like Gavin Newsom is like a good example
Sure.
of somebody who's
Sure.
like giving a healthy example of masculinity. But yeah, so much of that ground was ceded to the right, and I think we have to like make up ground
Exactly.
on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, sick. I think we both agree. We need more hyper masculine dudes.
hyper
Kicking ass.
True. Okay.
Yeah, having friends with sick.
True. Actually, unironically, some of those examples are.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I was joking,
Yeah.
but like I'm also 100% serious. We need some like roided out motherfuckers.
I don't know about roided out.
Oh,
but
we need a little bit of roids. Come on, a little bit of roids.
maybe a little
At
bit. of
least
roids.
30
Okay.
pull-ups, right?
I guess.
Okay.
Sure.
Sweet. Okay. That's
All right,
I got.
Simon, you had a great run. Everyone put it together for Simon. Are you ready to officially endorse Gavin Newsom?
I love Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I do too.
3 years is a long time. People obsess over this presidency. We got to get through midterms.
Yeah.
We
But
have midterm elections right now, you know?
is Gavin Newsom, as it stands right now, someone you predict is going to do very well?
It's impossible. It really is. Anybody that tries to make predictions is so. I don't know if people remember this, but I'm pretty sure that we were talking about Gavin Newsom running in 2024 in like 2021. I'm pretty sure that was like people were, and then even prior to that, like Gavin Newsom's like been in the zeitgeist of like potential candidates for like a long time. Even
He
when
didn't have the Trump trolling down by
No,
then.
he didn't. But I'm just saying, like but I'm just saying, like there are times where like people are like floating his name out there, but then it's like by election time, like this is just not even a consideration, right? So I don't even know if he was seriously floated when people were saying like we should have a primary. I feel like people like Shapiro even maybe were more seriously floated as, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm somewhere there. I'm just saying like 3 years is a long fucking time. So who knows, you know, as a president, if he would be, a good president or not, or if I would support him or not. Yeah.
How many of you like Gavin Newsom? Show of hands. Okay, overwhelming majority in the room, just for the record. We'll check on that in 3 years. Just a quick roll call here for debaters. Genevieve Estrada, are you in the room? You bought a debate ticket. No? Austin Cole? Austin Cole? We still haven't heard from Austin yet. This is a bit of a sad story. Our red-hatted, Trump-supporting, InfoWars shirt-wearing guy his bus is delayed. He sent me a message. He's been on a bus trip for 4 days trying to get here in time. So it really sucks. He might not actually make it in time, but we'll see what happens. He might just get here.
We have like 2 minutes to get here, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of time. We are out by 10 o'clock tonight. And I'll just let you guys know, everyone's leaving who wants one with a free signed poster from Destiny. We will do that once we're done with the debates tonight, and you can get a picture as well. Okay, next up, one more name, Mr. Perez, Eleazar Perez. Are you here? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go to Dan M. Dan, you're up next. Everyone welcome Dan to the stage.
Do we have? Is it hot in here? Do we have AC? What the fuck?
What's that?
Do we have AC in here? Is anybody else
can't-
hot, or is it just me?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
AC air conditioner?
Oh yeah, I think they said they cranked it, but let me go look. Define cranked. Make sure you hold the microphone.
How's this? Sounding good?
Just
Closer?
move your hand up closer to the
Like
top.
an
of-
MC, like
there
Eminem.
you
Okay.
go.
How's this?
Close.
Perfect. Yeah, rock and roll.
Perfect. All right, beautiful room. Steven, thanks so much for coming out.
Thanks for having
really
me.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you guys a little bit.
Oh,
Doesn't
no.
seem like we're going to have a lot of MAGA guys tonight.
Okay.
So I know we're out here for some blood.
Oh no.
But I am coming with some pro-socially conservative points, so maybe we can go
Oh.
over those. See
Okay.
where we stand on that. Yeah. Just a quick show of hands. Anyone here from Washington? Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm from Washington, so it was much closer here than actually Seattle. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, Steven. So I've never done this before, so be gentle on me. It's my first time.
You'll be fine.
All right. That was.
What do you do for work in Washington?
Well, I'm actually self-employed, so I do like software sales, and yeah,
Okay. Selling cheats on Battle.net? No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
selling cheese.
Cheats like game cheats?
Oh, dude, yeah, no,
Hacks?
not me, but my friends are. Yeah, no, I'm more like in proxy services, so like internet services, like hosting SIM cards and stuff like that. Yeah,
Okay.
cool. Anyway, so I wanted to be respectful and go last. Guess respect the audience, respect the events, respect you. So let some of the MAGA folks show up first, but I guess that's not the case, so I'll be here for now. Anyway, my topic is more for pro-socially conservative values, more than so pro-Trump. I used to actually be a really hardcore pro-MAGA guy, not so much anymore. Kind of switched from 2020 to 2022. A lot of events happened there, from the BLM to the insurrection to the invasion of Ukraine. So a lot of that just kind of shifted me over. However, I deeply value socially conservative values. So I wanted to go over that. And typically, I have about 3 points: religion, family values, and abortion. I'm yapping a lot. I am a yapper, so if you want to interject.
Yep.
just-
Give me a point.
Yep.
Let's go with the first one.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Religion.
Yeah.
Personal anecdote: someone close to me believed that Trump was literally the Antichrist, and guess who they voted for?
Donald Trump?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Base?
I feel like a lot of people on the right really see Democrats in such low regard, that even lower than the son of Lucifer himself. So, and of course, it's not your fault. This is the work of the gaslighting, the propaganda, and the constant vilification of the right. However, it would help if I think some Democratic figures on the left were a little bit more vocal about their faith. So, for example, I just recently found out that apparently Jimmy Kimmel is a Christian, and I don't know why it took so long for me to figure that out. It just seems like a lot of people on the left are a little bit more secluded.
I feel like it's very performative on the right, and also I don't know.
I agree.
Like watching that Charlie Kirk shit was crazy. The funeral
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
or whatever.
like
I
an MMA,
didn't know the
yep.
evangelical shit. I thought I was watching like the televangelist or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, do you remember what Joe Biden would close like every speech with? It was something
Not
along
really.
the lines of like, I love the country and like God bless our troops.
Yes.
Right? He said God bless our troops, right?
Yeah.
I think he said that every single time.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody on the right cared as much about that. Like, I feel
They
like it's like
didn't,
a
no.
proxy thing in terms of when it comes to
They didn't,
religiosity
no.
or whatever. If anything, I feel I've also heard people attack. Like, it was known where Obama went to church, for instance, and his reverend, that was brought up. Jeremiah Wright, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Biden also constantly went to church with his wife. He was an active churchgoer, practicing Catholic, and no one on the right seemed to care about that.
Yeah.
But it's also, I feel like the left isn't really helping the cause as well. So even Tim Walz, for example, when he was running with Kamala Harris, I found out that he was a believer only like when he was debating J.D. Vance. I think that was way too long to wait just to kind of make his faith known. I think it's something, I feel like with a Republican, you know everything about them within the first 5 minutes of their appearance, right? They're
Sure, but like, is that
wearing
like an important? I mean, not to. What's the one parable of the guy that walks up and makes the big deal about like showing or preaching his faith in
Yeah.
public, and then the poor woman loser
Yeah.
like throws in 2 silver coins, and Jesus
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she's way cooler than the other guy. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Okay. It has to do with there's a parable where I think there's a guy that walks up and he makes a huge show of
Yeah.
donating like a huge amount of money,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody's like, oh my god.
And then
this
the
guy's
lady
so
gives
awesome.
all she has, but it's just a few coins.
It's a few coins, but it's not just
Yeah.
that she gives a lot. I think it's also that she
It's
does
like-
it like humbly, quietly, or whatever.
Yes, and it's all that she had, yeah.
What?
I think the point was that she did it humbly, she did it quietly,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah, yeah.
also everything she had. She gave all of it.
Yeah, maybe that too. Yeah, but the like being ultra performative about your religion and ultra performative about your belief. I mean, like I guess you can appeal to a certain type of religious person that way, but I mean, like I feel like that's a bad practice even of your religion. So I don't even know how you would try to appeal to the
I agree
people
with
that
the
really like
performance
that.
part. I agree with you on that. I think it's just like
I mean, fuck. Actually, I feel like most Catholics in the United States. This is a vibe I get. I don't know the polling.
they don't like a lot of the evangelical stuff. I don't think.
Yeah, but they also
Yeah.
like didn't like the last
like
pope.
like the late. Yeah, like the
This
late.
is like God 2.0 basically to you guys. Like this is directly from Peter. I built my church on this rock. Whatever
Yep.
bullshit. How do you guys not like the fucking Pope? That's crazy. Like I feel like
Too
when
old,
people are
man.
saying things like I disagree
wants
with the
to train
Pope's
their kid?
moral stance about like fucking immigration and borders, I'm like, damn, that's so something that seems to be more important there than the religious part that's powering them. I feel like I only say this because I feel like over the past like 5 or 10 years, as a hardcore atheist, I guess, but like, I feel like the Democratic Party's had like a healthy engagement with religion. Like they're
I
not
think so.
afraid to do like the bless your troops or whatever. They're
Yeah.
not afraid to say that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a good place right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But it's like you said, Vosh, when he went on his like anti-religion tour, I think he lost like 20% of his audience or something like that. So
You think say that last part again?
look, when Vosh went on his religion tour, he's going on it right now or something like that. Like
Okay.
ARC. He's losing like a portion of his audience. I
No
feel
way.
like just
His audience is so godless.
yeah,
Unironically, I feel like his audience would be like super secular and atheist. now.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think every politician should do that. I mean, I'm pretty mean towards
Yeah.
religious stuff, but like I'm not trying to run
That's
for
okay.
office. Yeah,
That's okay.
And I don't think the
I'm
Democratic
just-
Party should copy my messaging.
yeah, that's
on
totally
that.
okay.
Yeah.
That's always healthy, a little bit of a edginess.
Sure.
Here,
I guess I'll ask before we move on to the next point. What is like one thing that you think the Democratic Party should do better in terms of appealing
are we
to
time
religion?
limited? Time constrained?
A little. The guy.
Okay.
Travis said we were. So yeah. But
Okay,
But,
yeah,
But
sorry,
what's
guys.
what's
I
the
wa-
thing you think that they could do to like message better or do better on the religious part?
Cool. Family values.
No,
I-
wait. Answer my question. What do you think is the thing the Democratic Party could do better to message on religious
Oh,
values?
on religious.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Dude, it would be so sick if Gavin Newsom hosted a prayer night. That would break conservatives' brains. Like next time there's like a PNW fire or something like that, if Gavin Newsom just got organized with religious leaders, with pastors, and he hosted a prayer night, that would absolutely break conservatives' brains. They wouldn't know how to respond to that. It would be epic troll, but it would also just kind of be really uniting, I think. What do you think about that?
That would be interesting.
It would be interesting.
I would say it'd be interesting.
It's like
I don't know
the
what
meme where
response
Gavin
would be.
Newsom is being preyed on by it's an AI generated meme, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, you
Okay.
kind of just flipping the cards back on them,
Sure. Okay.
But I just think,
Well, Trump had that. Somebody in the audience asked, "Has Trump had a prayer night?" Didn't Trump put some crazy religious lady as like the head of whatever?
yeah, she's the tongue speaking one, and actually Catholics, I think, seem to hate her.
Well, we don't believe in that tongue speaking
Yeah.
shit, so I don't think we do. But okay. So
Yeah.
next thing was
I'll move on to
values.
family values. I just got a couple more points. I feel
Trump
like
does do the performative. He would hold up the Bible and he'd
Yep.
be like, "I'd
Dude,
always say
this
this
guy
is the
when
best
he was
book in the
asked,
world."
dude, this guy such a degenerate. When he was asked what's his favorite verse in the Bible, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I like the whole book. The Old Testament, the New Testament."
Yeah.
And then he was asked can you give us at least one verse from the Bible? He's like, you know what, it's kind of personal. I don't really want to say it. Like, dude, this guy couldn't even say John 3:16, the most basic one you could possibly say. It's that easy. It's like,
That's how little he
Yeah.
cares. Yeah.
yeah.
But like that should be another thing where if the religious part was important, it's hard in politics because I feel like other like traits proxy things
Yeah.
so many times. Like if you're an actual religious person, when you hear Trump say something like that, you know that he's never opened a Bible in his fucking
Yeah.
life, right? But they don't care. They don't seem to care.
They don't care.
Also, they excuse all of the moral degeneracy as well.
They excuse the fact that he was divorced 3 times. The fact,
He was banging a
he's a-
prostitute while his wife was at home with a
absolutely,
newborn. Like, yeah.
he's incestuous. Talks about his daughters in an absolutely disgusting way.
Yeah.
Openly brags about grabbing women by the vaginas, and then when he's accused from a woman of being grabbed by the vagina, then all his maggot cultish followers, the Trump tards, the trumpets, are all
Yeah. Not
they're like, no, he would never do that. How dare you even accuse him? That's slander. That's
Yeah, it's not good. Okay, second point. Go. Family values. What do you got?
Family values. So we hear a lot about from the right of this idea of the nuclear family. Have you heard of this, the nuclear family?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so and I actually think that Democrat figures, especially the more prominent ones, politicians, have a better example of such family values, right? If we look at some of the prominent Republican figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who committed infidelity and had basically cheated on her husband with her sex guru yoga instructor. If we look at Lauren Boebert, who basically openly out in the open was giving handjobs to her boyfriend, who by the way owns a gay bar. Does anyone here know that her boyfriend owns a gay bar? Raise of hands. okay, like one person in this whole room knows that her boyfriend owns a gay bar that is drag friendly, and this is like a prominent conservative leader that is like, I'm assuming, very anti-LGBT, very anti-gay, and I'm surprised that not a lot of people know that. I feel like the liberal media has kind of failed on that messaging. These people should constantly be shamed, constantly exposed. They should never feel safe,
Careful.
Okay, not in Minecraft.
Being degenerates.
Right. They should never feel safe going on TV or in office and showing their faces and not feel shame. But these people just get away with it. They're complete degenerates. They do all the stuff that they preach that they're against or that are contradictory to the values or the virtues that are biblical.
And they should be called out more on it.
Right,
I maybe could agree with that.
absolutely.
Okay.
Right. And then, of course, Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Right. The disgraced Matt Gaetz now, who resigned, allegedly sex trafficking a 17-year-old. And, of course, the big man himself, Donald Trump, who we already discussed that. And then
Did
J.D.
bad things. Yep, he did bad things as well. Give me point with 3. Travis about to cut you off, so give me your third
What's
point
that?
there. He's going to cut you off soon, so give me the third point you got. Yeah.
Okay.
You said family values, and then what was the
And
third
then
one?
abortion. So
Okay.
am I correct that over the last 3 years, it's the Democrats like Obama and Clinton that were responsible for lowering abortion rates by like 40% or something? Does that sound right?
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like 36 to 40%. So Democrats have actually done a lot more to cut abortion rates in half, which I think is a good thing. We can all agree on that. Abortion is something that is deeply traumatic. It's a difficult experience. And ideally, we don't want abortions, right? So Democrats actually over the last 30 years have a better track record of lowering abortion rates. And we don't really hear that from the Democratic side. And instead, we allowed the right to hijack the pro-life and all these labels, which sound virtuous. They sound better. I mean, pro-life does sound kind of better than pro-choice. We allowed them to hijack that. And so the left is kind of like strapped into this cuck chair that is bolted into the ground. Meanwhile, the right is just kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, this is a point I've argued in the past too, but something has happened in the conservative brain which is hard to break through because I'll point out things. I think generally the way that Democrats are able to fight against the amount of abortions happening is because they support things like contraception or teaching kids in school.
Absolutely.
Safe sex
education, contraceptives, ease of access,
but the issue then is that Republicans will just turn the argument over to kids shouldn't be exploring that stuff and it's not properly taught in the schools. That shouldn't happen anyway. They seem to immediately not care about it anyway. Actually, I'm making this up, right? It wasn't Ben Shapiro in my debate on Lex Friedman. Ben Shapiro didn't say maybe it would be good if 15-year-olds were having kids. Did he say that? Did anybody remember that?
I think Charlie Kirk even said that if his daughter was...
I feel like I was debating a well-known conservative or watching a well-known conservative debate where the concept of what if a 15-year-old gets pregnant and the conservative brought up, well, maybe it'd be good for families. I feel like Ben might have said that on debate. And I was like, that's an unhinged
Wouldn't
position.
surprise me.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand the concept. I feel like there are there might be middle ground positions. I think maybe that you could take on abortion, maybe, but
abortions went up by 8% under Trump's first term. I feel like that should be really problematic for the Republicans, the party that is allegedly pro-life, allegedly wants to lower abortion rates.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I feel like this is one of those things that I addressed one or two callers ago, where the guy talked about an issue, and I'm like, it might be a thing, but there's a more rotted fundamental issue first, because I can already see if you bring any of this up, with any of these people, the excuses are going to start to come out, and they're not going to care because we're it's so divorced in reality. I think that if we had a better shared factual understanding of what's going on, then I think you could hold them to account for these numbers. But you've seen me do it on stream. You should find fucking conservatives sometimes and argue with these people, and they have an escape for every single thing. One stat that
they're snakes. They find a way to wiggle themselves out. Yeah.
The what?
They're like snakes. They can wiggle themselves out of anything.
Kind of, yeah. The one stat that's been getting posted a lot, I've seen it in my sub a lot, is the idea that it was 98% of all jobs created in the past 30 years have happened under Democratic administrations, and they can try to argue their way out of that. But I think that it was 2 nights ago or 4 nights ago where I literally had a guy on stage and I was asking him, why did Biden have so much inflation? And it was pulling teeth to get him to say inflation. And I even set him up. I was watch this, audience.
The COVID one?
Yeah, and then I asked him, I was well, what happened in Trump year 4? And he was COVID immediately. And I'm like, Jesus, what the fuck?
I was paying attention. I watched your last two live streams.
I feel like it's hard to argue with somebody who I don't feel like they believe sometimes the things that they say, or they're just ended up being proxies for other things that are less important.
Yeah.
It's hard to navigate that environment where the media is also feeding them so many lines and narratives. There are so many aspects of Trump's life that if Obama emulated one of these things, especially, not to be too whatever, but especially as a black guy, if Obama would have been fucking a porn star when Michelle Obama was at home with a newborn kid, we would never, ever hear the end of that.
That's the thing, though, man, is Obama, Walz, the Bidens, the Clintons even, you don't hear these scandals regarding.
You don't, but it's because of the other thing where like conservatives control this media environment.
Yes.
Like when I saw people blowing up Biden over the leaked text from between him and Hunter, and they're just like the nicest, most concerned dad texts like in the world. I'm like, you guys are demons. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the idea that like none of the stuff that Trump did mattered, but like I remember watching, like I said, there's a lot of mean this in her fucking Air Force fatigues or whatever they're wearing. I remember my mom crying over the Monica Lewinsky stuff because it was such a horrible thing for the commander in chief to do.
I wanted to get right into that if I can interject.
All right,
go.
final
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
thoughts
Yeah, go
there,
ahead.
Dan. Final
Okay,
thoughts.
Final thoughts, man.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, the thing about Monica Lewinsky too, right? That's like one of the only Democratic administrations that has had like a conflict. And even then, if you look at it, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, what is the result of their marriage right now? Right? They're together. They overcame this hurdle that they had in their marriage. They're together.
That's a way to put it, yeah.
I guess, yeah. They're together now. And to me, if I was a troll, if I was sitting here, I would tell you that is a perfect example of a God-honoring marriage right there. Unlike, okay, this degenerate Trump who just divorces. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, but like I've argued these things in the past. Conservatives will just outright say, "I don't care about Trump's moral character. That's not relevant." And
So you don't think that Democrats should appeal to some? So like,
I think they should, but I think that this goes in part larger to like the whole media apparatus.
I
thing.
also don't think
Yeah.
that it's about appealing and trying to like reach out to moderates or conservatives. I think it's just about reclaiming your moral authority. Don't be.
It
cucked.
is. It just. I agree. It just can't be one section that does it.
Yeah.
It has to be like everybody.
Yeah,
Like together.
totally,
doing it. But
totally.
if we were like all aligned, there are so many
Absolutely.
options that we could like engage.
Absolutely.
with,
So
yeah.
I figure I'm out of time. Is that
All
right?
right, thanks, Dan.
Aw,
Everyone,
man.
put your hands together for Dan. Rock and roll. Thank you so much. And keep it going for Donald Trump's worst nightmare, Destiny. Woohoo!
Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. We'll be doing signings in 5 minutes, and good luck in the fight against ICE and in the fight against the perpetual state of war that your city is apparently engulfed in. Yeah.
We're here for you guys. I mean that, seriously. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to move on to the post-show part of the event.